We are live.
Okay.
It's not on.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order and welcome you to the Hampton-Wilbraham Regional School District School Committee meeting. It is 6:01 p.m. I see that David Sanders from Wilbraham Public Access is recording. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? We will begin with roll call in alphabetical order. Bill Bontempi.
Here.
Cheryl Caruana.
Here.
Sean Kennedy.
Here.
Lisa Murray.
Here.
Rich Rediker. Mike Terabasi.
I am here.
And Michelle Boudreau. I'm here. If you please stand, Lisa will lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we are going to begin with the order of the meeting. So I just want to thank everyone for being here for these interviews for the Director of Student Services position. As you know, we have 3 highly qualified finalists joining us for interviews this evening, and each of them brings unique strengths and experience to the table. So before we begin, I would like to outline the process for our interviews. Each interview will last approximately 45 minutes with roughly 15 minutes scheduled in between candidates for any necessary breaks and to allow for transition time. During the interview, each of us will have the opportunity to ask questions to the candidates. You are welcome to select a question from the provided list. However, you are also welcome to come up with your own questions if you feel they address key concepts, key aspects of the role, or there are specific areas you'd like to explore further. It's important that we gather as much insight as possible to make an informed decision. So just to be clear on your list, the interview questions 1 through 10, are the questions that the hiring committee asked all of the interviewees. And so 11 through 19 are additional questions that may look familiar to the committee. Once all interviews have concluded, we will deliberate to determine which candidate we believe is the best fit for the Director of Student Services position. Following our decision, we will inform the superintendent of our choice and then move to executive session. Our goal tonight is to identify the candidate who not only possesses the necessary skills and experience, but also aligns with the values and vision of our school district. So if there are no other questions, let's proceed with selecting questions and establishing the order in which they will be asked.
Will deliberation be in executive session or not?
It will be in public. So after the interviews conclude, we will deliberate, and then we will inform the superintendent of our position, and then we will end with our decision of who we would like him to enter into negotiations with, and then we will be moving to executive session.
Michelle, the plan being you're going to call the successful candidate tonight to inform them that they've been accepted to executive and to go into negotiations with them. Have each of the candidates been informed that they will be called tonight? I don't want to run into an East Hampton superintendent situation where the guy doesn't answer the phone and they end up sending the police to his house.
We can make sure that Erin goes over that. When
Just make sure before they leave, they know one of them, if they get, they should not have their phone off. So each one of them should have their phone out because one of them will get a call.
So just the best number to reach them this evening.
To be called, are you going to be just calling the candidate that's selected, or all 3 get a call? Yes, just the candidate that's selected.
They will all receive a phone call.
A quick point of order. Does everybody hear music playing?
I do. Is it your phone?
It's my phone.
Okay.
Call someone inside the house.
Good music. Thank you, Tom.
And then, Michelle, you said that questions 1 through 10 had already been asked of the candidates.
Correct, just so everyone has an idea of what was asked during the first phase of interviews. And so then the second page just introduces additional questions.
Okay.
So this, so I will begin with the first question, just in, welcoming the candidate and asking them to tell us a little bit about themselves and what brought them to the HWRSD.
I think Lisa and I were going to split 12 up into... Oh, I think Lisa and I are going to split 12 up into 2 questions.
Yeah,
That'll be right?
just a challenge and an accomplishment.
Okay, so which one of you is asking which, and who's going first?
I'm the challenge.
And I'll be accomplishment.
And I don't care who goes first. Ladies first.
Okay.
Or do you want me first?
No, it's fine, I can go first.
I'd like to take 17.
Okay.
And then 19 as well.
I'll take 11 and 18.
Sure. I was hoping for 19. Is there any other one you like? Well, besides 19.
Cheryl wants to trade with you, if you're willing to trade 19.
I'm trading 19 for,
What-
not 19?
Right,
No.
for a first round draft pick.
14, maybe take 14?
Okay, thank you. I'll get back to that.
Okay.
Okay,
So this is what, and I just.
so,
We have everything covered.
yep, we have everything
We have
covered.
them all covered.
Can you go over the numbers?
Yep. So we have Lisa, you're asking about accomplishments. Mike is asking about challenges.
Yeah,
Yep.
which
Sean.
14 might end up overlapping with, I don't know if somebody else wanted, say 14.
Can you say that again?
14 overlaps with it if somebody picked 14.
Yes, Bill has 14.
And 17. You want me to split those up, or do you want me to ask in sequence?
I think he's saying that,
It's a repetitive
Yeah,
question.
it is.
yeah, the challenge question is
It's going to be
It kind of
repetitive.
redundant
Challenge
with
question I'm asking
your
is-
14 and 12
Oh.
challenge.
Oh, okay. All right, what about 16?
You know, Bill, you could rewrite 14 to ask them to tell you about a conflict they've had to deal with in the festival. I don't think any of these deal with having to work on conflict resolution.
No, because they may very well very well discuss a challenge as a conflict, so I wouldn't want to corner them that much. I probably would give them kind of free rein, they've ask them more of an open-ended question. So, I can ask them about the budget.
Okay, so then, Mike, so you'll be challenged, crossover with 14. Sean, your leadership, number 11, and 18 about a significant example of professional development.
Copy.
Bill, you have the budget question, and then 17 regarding thinking outside of the box. And then Cheryl, you have about who they are outside of the world of education. Okay,
So can we say these in order, please?
yep.
Is that the order that we're going in?
I think so, actually.
What do you
So
want?
if everyone's in favor, so accomplishments, and then challenges, and then about leadership style, and then,
Hold on, because leadership is before accomplishment, so are we going, Sean,
The-
number 1?
no, the example that no, I'm sorry, the order in which I said your name. So Lisa, you would be number 2, because I'm doing the introductory
Okay.
question. You would be number 2, I think, if everyone's in agreement, speak up. And then 3 would be Mike with challenges.
Cool.
4 would be Sean and leadership style. And then, about Sean with professional development, number 18. And then Bill, if you want to do the budget. And then thinking outside of the box, number 17. And then Cheryl, number 19. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Sure.
So I'm following Sean.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So
Okay.
Lisa, Mike, Sean, Bill, Cheryl. And then I will close with thanking them for being here this evening and asking them if there's anything that we did not ask them they would like to share.
I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask, and maybe they're covered here. Can I just go over them quick? So positive, effective relationships with families are essential to collaboration, especially for students with unique needs. Can you discuss how you've effectively engaged and supported families when the district's perspective of the child's needs conflict with the family's perspective?
Did you want to replace that question with one of your other questions?
Hey, you don't have to.
You don't have to, no one has to ask any of these questions. These are just
Yeah,
the
but
guides.
the
If you
one you
want
got
to-
written there sounds good.
Yeah.
You don't have to ask one of these.
Also got, please discuss situations you have positively navigated with families through the Board of Special Education Appeals hearing process. Please discuss thoughts you have to recruit, train, and train special education staff and related services staff. Please discuss your plan to engage and collaborate with essential supports of students with significant social, emotional, behavioral needs. Just a few,
We only have 5 minutes.
yeah, no. I think I was going to ask,
I like that first one you had written.
yeah, I'm going to do that first one, if that's okay.
Sure.
And which one did they get to, the leadership? Yeah, you know what, those are both very similar, so why don't I do number 11, and then I'll do this one.
So instead of your 18 question, you're in
Yeah.
yours. Yeah, okay.
The first one you said?
You're going to keep the first one.
Wait, this is.
Yeah, they can. Yep.
They can watch us right now.
Yeah.
Our first candidate's already here, so it's on like yours. They are active.
You should be, have speakers and do this.
Okay, is everyone okay with that? Does
Yeah.
anyone have any changes they'd like to make, any other questions they'd like to add?
I'd like to thank my neighbors for helping me collaborate with some of these, especially Michelle out there. She's amazing. Thank you.
Okay, so we are ready to begin.
Alrighty, I will go.
Thank you.
Now, John, one of these candidates you know, correct?
First one.
First one. This is, okay.
Bill, Dr. Ziamba says hello.
Oh, did you see him today?
Yeah,
How's he doing?
he is wonderful. He's a great guy.
Oh, yeah. I've known him since dental school,
Wow.
a long time ago.
1800s, huh?
Yeah. Just before electric light and running water.
Are we really going to have him sit so far back?
Yeah, you want to move the table up?
Yeah.
I think that would be a-
Well,
I can move it, John. Okay.
we got it.
Poor guy just gonna sit like.
And once they sit and once I explain the way the interview's gonna go, we're gonna introduce ourselves.
Just don't trip on the cord.
Yeah. You know what, let's put him on the other.
Me too. Kind of see, just be careful with the electrical cords. They're all listed in, so you shouldn't have any problem. Electrocution. All right.
Hi Josh, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Before we begin, I'll just let you know that we have about 45 minutes for the interview this evening. We will all be asking you questions, and we will begin with introductions. So Bill, it's for you.
We met Bill Bontempi, school committee representing Wilbraham.
John Provost, Superintendent.
Michelle Boudreaux, School Committee Chair.
Cheryl Carolina, School Committee for Wilbraham.
Mike Terabassi, Wilbraham.
Lisa Murray, Wilbraham.
Sean Kennedy, Vice Chair, also from Wolverhampton. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
So I will begin. If you would just mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to apply for the position in the HWRSD.
Sure. Can you turn the microphone on? There's a button right in front of you there?
Yes.
There you go, thank you. And you can move the, is how you want.
Sure. Is that good?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Josh Dixon. I am a special education teacher by training. I started my educational career as a one-to-one paraeducator in preschool for a young man with cerebral palsy and developmental disabilities. I've been a special education teacher in substantially separate classrooms for students with communication disabilities and developmental disabilities. And I've also been an administrator both in Northampton as well as in Adams, Cheshire, or Hoosick Valley Regional School District. In all of my roles in education, my focus has been on placing students first. I believe that our goal as educators is to ensure that we have productive members of society who are able to give back to their community in whatever ways that they are able to do that. And I think that as a director of student services and as a teacher, our role is really to ensure that we have different paths created so that students can accomplish that goal in whatever way that they can, and to think outside of the box when challenges come up in order to help them overcome their challenges and also break down some of the barriers that may be present in our community for them. In terms of what brought me here to New Wilbraham, the pieces that stuck out to me are actually from your strategic plan, as well as your mission statement and core values. Many of the pieces match my own sort of leadership style and educational philosophy. So the emphasis on shared responsibility as well as inclusion for students are some of the things that really stuck out to me. And the other piece that really I think is important is when we think about students, that we think about the whole student. And so the piece that I really resonated with me was the fact that there's an emphasis on critical thinking and creativity, and also on developing student skills, not only academically, but also social emotionally, and then with vocational and transition skills.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Hi, Josh, I have the next question. From the standpoint of your own career, what would be 3 of the most important accomplishments you believe you have made in the past few years?
The most recent accomplishment that I've been able to achieve with the help of my colleagues is a student-specific example. We had a young lady who joined us from out of state. She had been in a private day school, and at the time, the family really wanted her to be able to participate in her community middle school. There was some resistance from staff and the community based on the student's history, but what we were able to do was really sort of strategically staff the student with more than one paraeducator at the start. We worked really slowly to sort of build their skills, their familiarity with the environment. And the piece that really sticks out to me is that this year, this fall, so about half a year from when she joined us, she has been able to successfully integrate into a substantially separate classroom to interact with peers. And that is something that not everybody on the team felt might be possible. The other 2 pieces that I am most proud about are the new IEP training guide that I created for my current district. My focus with that was really to create a practical, usable guide that could be a resource both now, while we're all trying to learn about the changes that the state has asked us to do, and that can be used in the future to ensure that we have some consistency. It was a really large undertaking, and the piece that felt really good to me is when you could hear the faculty provide feedback around, they were really anxious. You know, there's a new form, how are we going to do this, how are we going to know what to do? And it helped really sort of relieve some of that initial anxiety. which made me feel good, and all of us. And then the third piece is our new student services website for the Northampton Public Schools. I really focused with my team on creating a resource for families and the community at large around frequently asked questions, resources for community organizations, and sort of information to make special education feel less scary, and to share all of the tiered systems of supports that we have in place for students prior to referral.
Thank you very much.
All right. Can you please tell us about a challenge that you conquered as an educational leader, one that you were most proud of?
The biggest challenge that comes to mind, again, is a student-specific challenge. It was another middle school student in a different district than where I work now. I promise it's nothing related to middle school, it just happens to be what sticks out to me. But this young man was in our substantially separate behavior program, and he was really struggling with some recent trauma that he had experienced. And so we were seeing some really large upticks in aggressive behavior, both physically and verbally. Staff had expressed some concerns, weren't really sure what to do. And so I took a good chunk of a week and worked one-on-one with the student in the classroom with staff present. We partnered with our BCBA as well to have a partnership between me, the BCBA, to sort of switch on and off with staff, focusing on modeling strategies and really ensuring that the student felt supported and the staff felt supported in terms of me not asking them to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. I'm not quite sure where the student is now or how they're doing, but what I do recall from that experience was that the administration felt supported, which is always an important thing, that the paraeducators felt supported, and most importantly, that the student experienced success, both in the short term and the long term, and the family was also super appreciative, which I think is one of the things that's most important. Relationship building and collaboration are the two real hallmarks of any position in education, but especially in the Director of Student Services role.
No, it's not you, Josh. I might have to turn that on. Sorry.
It's interesting, what you had just said just dovetails nicely into this next question. So, positive, effective relationships with families are essential to collaboration, especially for students with unique needs. Can you discuss how you have effectively engaged and supported families when the district's perspective of the child's needs conflicts with the family's perspective?
So the strategy that I have found to be most effective is to listen and to genuinely listen to families and to acknowledge their perspective. We may see different aspects of the child in school, and we don't necessarily know everything that the family experiences. It's a very different experience for a parent or a caregiver who has a child 24 hours a day than it is for an educator who may only have them for that small snippet. And the structures at school are very different than the structures and expectations at home, typically. And what I've found to be most effective is to really validate and genuinely validate the parent's perspective and to try to explain why we may believe the student needs other services or doesn't need a particular service, and to have evidence and data to back that up. It's been really important to not sort of just subjectively make a decision or to make an argument, but to really have some information and data to sort of support our perspective. And sometimes it is really challenging to reconcile that, and it's not always possible. But what I have found is that by actively engaging with the family on an ongoing basis, being willing to have those conversations over and over again, to sort of give benchmarks around, well, why don't we try this for this amount of time and check back in, see how that's going, rather than sort of just draw a line in the sand. That can be really supportive to families and not feel so contentious or argumentative. And then to be honest and transparent when we've made a mistake, if we haven't done something right, or if something hasn't gone the way we thought it would. It's important to be human, to maintain sort of that perspective. And the conversations that I have in this role and that teachers and administrators have all the time are hard. They're not easy for families to hear. And so the more that we can keep the child at the center and to sort of keep our humanity, I think those are the aspects that make it easier when those difficult conversations come up.
Thank you. The next question I have for you is about leadership, and this is a general question. Can you please share your personal leadership philosophy, how you live it, and almost more importantly, how it has changed over your career?
Sure. My leadership style, I would say, focuses on three major foundational blocks: collaboration, caring, and relationship building. In a leadership role, my goal is to establish a shared vision and shared accountability for the department. I think that in order to do that, you have to listen, to really hear from everyone's perspective. I had talked a little bit about, in my first interview, how each role in the school district is unique. And so a paraeducator's perspective versus a teacher or a principal's perspective all may vary. And in order to be successful, you have to be able to gather information from all of those different stakeholders and then synthesize it into sort of the shared visions, the shared vision and goals that we hope to exemplify as a department. The piece that I had mentioned before is around being honest and transparent. And to not be afraid to make a mistake. But the important piece is to establish a community and a department where we all feel comfortable debriefing situations or experiences that we've had, talking about this, what we did right, what we could have changed or done differently, and figuring out how we're going to move forward and not make those same mistakes again. The one thing that I have learned and that has shifted over the years is that we are a team, and being a team is really, really important. And so what I've learned is when a challenge or question comes up is to gather all the information that you can before trying to solve the problem, and to get those perspectives. So for example, if a family has a complaint about a staff member or about how something is implemented, to really be sure that we're checking in with the teacher, that we're checking in with the paraeducator and the principal, gathering all that information before I follow up with a parent. Because otherwise it can be very divisive, and that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. And I would say that the last piece that I have learned is how important it is to emphasize equity, and with that, to be able to share with both families and staff that equity doesn't always mean equal. And so when we're looking at distribution of resources, or we're looking at how we address one particular situation, which may seem similar between two different students, to remember that what one student or family needs may not be the same, even if there are similarities between the two examples or two cases.
Very good, thank you.
How you doing, Josh?
Good.
Are you having fun so far?
It's always stressful.
You're doing great.
What I have to say?
Hey, listen, I think you're doing great. All right,
Maybe take a sip of water, just to remind you.
Your answers are very good. They are crisp. They are clean. I appreciate your forthright approach. I think as an interviewee, you're doing awesome, right? So this is a conversation. It feels like you're getting pelted with a whole bunch of questions, and you are. But at the same time, there's a lot of other things going into it other than just the content of what you're saying. But what I've heard today is really interesting. The next question that I have for you, actually, I'd like to start off by congratulating you on this. This is, it's a fascinating piece. It really is. Did you come up with this? Was this something that you devised kind of yourself, or was this an idea of yours to put together?
So I participated in the stage train, the train the trainer trainings, and what I took away from that, knowing our staff, is that wasn't going to be the best approach. And that's I apologize, that's no offense to the state, they did a really wonderful job. But it's important to know sort of the people that you work with and what will and will not work.
Right, yeah.
And so what I decided to do instead was take the blank IEP from our student management system, so we use Aspen.
Okay.
And so I took sort of their resource guide and transposed, or overlaid rather, that information onto the actual form. So that way, when our teachers are going through an IEP for a student, they're able to really see what it's going to look like.
Okay.
Because if it's not meaningful for them, then it's just going to be one of those things that sits on the shelf, and that's definitely what we don't want.
Right. So I congratulate you on that. I also congratulate you on the Student Services website. That also caught my ear. I think it's a very innovative thing. You seem like you have some innovative ideas. What other things are brewing in that brain, innovationally speaking, that you have as sort of, and this is not necessarily just saying like we're going to do this in this district, but like how far does that imagination travel, like innovation-wise? What other ideas or innovations do you have for the position of Student Services Director?
Sure. I would say that the things that have been sort of running around in my head is a parent version of the handbook, but in a much more sort of parent-friendly version of the handbook that's electronic. And so one of the tools that I discovered recently is called Articulate, and it's just sort of a fancy PowerPoint, I guess would be the best way to think about it. But it allows you to do audio recordings, sort of hotspots where you can click on certain pieces of information. And so I had started sort of developing the same idea of this is what your child's IEP is going to look like, and here's what you need to know about those components and what's changed. And so I find this is the type of thing, besides working directly with students, I had talked about in my first interview how summer school is always my favorite time of the year because I actually get to see the students that I read about on paper or that I'm trying to problem solve. And it's important to me to build relationships with them just as much as it is to build relationships with staff and families. But from that, now I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about innovation. We're talking about the hotspots, the programs that you want to do a thing for the parents.
Got it. So those are the types of activities, besides working with the students, that really bring me sort of joy. As a director of student services, you can sometimes have a lot of things coming at you that need immediate responses and are sort of quick. You have to make quick decisions, you have to be confident in those decisions, and it's hard sometimes to see the long-term goals and just sort of have that bucket filling, those bucket filling opportunities. And those examples, the website, the handbook, those are the things that sort of help me refill that bucket because I can do both, the day-to-day, here we have to do this, and I also want to make sure that I'm not losing sight of why I got into administration in the first place, of supporting families and staff with what they need.
Mm-hmm. Cool, awesome. The other question that I have is and this comes from a little bit different perspective because as I look through your resume, you've kind of gone back and forth between Northampton and North Adams, both of which are North Adams municipal districts. So here we've got a regional school district, a little bit different in that you're going to have sort of, how should I say, a much bigger hand in sort of the budgeting of this. So how much experience do you have sort of in the time that you've been working in student services in developing and implementing budgets?
Sure. Hoosick Valley is actually a regional district also. And I must say that I prefer regional district budgets as opposed to municipal budgets, in part because every line item is clearer to me in a regional budget than it is in a municipal budget. And what I have found is that my budgeting process is the same sort of either way. But the difference that I found is that, and I'm not sure if Hamilton does this, but in Hoosick Valley, we encumbered all of our payroll. And in municipal finance, we do not. At least in Northampton, we do not.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it really hard to know if there's any sort of wiggle room around, oh, I have, $10,000 and we happen to need an extra something. And I can find it in different places. And so it was really nice actually to be able to see sort of down to the dollar where we have funding to support our students and how to think differently. Mm-hmm. In terms of developing a budget, it's been a little bit different in each role that I've had as a director. I went line by line in the regional budget, in part because we knew all of the salaries and such in a little bit more of a finite way than in the municipal version.
Yeah.
And in the municipal side, really it was focusing on out-of-district tuition expenses, contracted services, and then just the bigger philosophy of what staffing do we need in order to effectively implement our IEPs, and how can we do that smarter. And so I have experience with both. I prefer having a little bit more control, if that makes sense, even though ultimately it's your control than the superintendent. But it's been easier to think creatively with that format.
Knowing that you have that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Josh.
Hi.
Going through all your paperwork was really time-consuming and well worth the effort. So I want to thank you for that because I learned a lot. Excuse me. I think I'm allergic to this room.
Not we all.
I learned a lot about who you are as an educator. What I'd like to ask you is, who are you out in the world outside of education? Your hobbies, your interests, what? It doesn't seem like you have a lot of time from what I read. But when you do, what do you like?
Sure. So I will say that this particular role, no matter where you are, is a very busy one. It does take a lot. Outside of school, I am an avid cook. So I love to, try new recipes with my partner, to go on walks, hikes. I had a little French bulldog who was the light of my life, and he recently passed. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. Actually, it's been a really big challenge. But what I have learned from that experience is actually sort of how am I going to keep that balance. So I've been working longer nights now that he's not home. And so besides cooking, though, I like to spend time with my family and keep those connections. So the same way that I like to build relationships and learn more about our families at work, I like to maintain those at home as well. And then I also have tried my hand at drawing and painting watercolors. One of my best friends is an artist, and so she has turned me on to sort of watercoloring, although I'm not quite as good as she is, by any means, actually. And clouds are my least favorite thing to have to try to paint. But nonetheless, I try to keep things light outside of school because most times, the topics that we're handling at work are really sort of heavy emotionally. And I have a long commute, both to my current job, and if I was to be the chosen candidate here, I'd have a little bit of a longer commute. So I've become an avid audiobook listener. And so that's sort of how I fill my time.
So what are you listening to this day?
Frida McFadden is my newest author that I've been listening to. She writes sort of different mystery thriller novels. So that's who I've been picking. And then I also went through the A through Z series, except unfortunately she passed away before she wrote the last book, so the A through Y. Yes, Y. A series which are also murder mysteries. So keeping it a little bit separate from our educational aspirations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to ask if there was any additional information that you'd like to share that maybe didn't come through in the questions that we asked you this evening. If not, that's
I don't
okay.
think so.
But if you have any questions for us, do you have any questions for us?
One question that I have is, what would be your top priority for this position, for somebody new coming into the role?
Yeah, I'm looking for someone that can build strong partnerships with families and leverage those partnerships for student success. I'm looking for someone that has a tremendous opportunity to improve every aspect of special education services in our district. Those were 2 lines that I pulled from one of your references.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say, and you're probably chuckle when I say this, but I think for every student services director it's the same, we're looking for somebody to successfully navigate and walk the tightrope that is your position, and that is sort of creating relationships with families, and their children, as well as with the faculty and administration within the district, so you're the teachers and your administrators, and being able to sort of foster a collegiality between all interested parties so that there is a unified vision of where we are going with student services. I don't think there's anything that pains me more than if I hear that there's one part of the team that may not be on board with how we are progressing with a child's education through special education, through student services. It might be the principal who's not happy, it might be the teacher who's not happy. And so when I say it tongue-in-cheek, but I do mean it in a quite literal way, because it is a tightrope. I mean, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. So yeah, that's basically what I'm looking for, is somebody who can successfully be able to foster those relationships and create that collegiality around educating the whole child and having everybody involved and focused on the same vision.
I would say that it's very important to be really visible in your first few months, so people know who you are, and ask questions, make connections with people. I think that would be really important before getting in the weeds, which you probably will get pretty soon.
Thank you.
I guess I'll make a comment. I mean, in the leadership position, I'm always looking for someone who's going to lead by supporting the team. And I don't know if you've seen the triangles, the upside down triangle. The team shouldn't be serving the leader, but the leader should be serving the team. So the higher up you are, I feel like the more service to those under you. And you did talk about a number of instances through your experiences during the interview here. I was very pleased to get.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Just to let you know, so we will be making a decision this evening. So we have 2 other interviews after you, and then we will be deliberating. So before you leave, if you would just make sure that you share the best contact information, so you can use this evening with Aaron before you leave. We'd appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Joshua, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Josh.
What time is it?
What time is the next?
7:15.
7:15. Okay.
But if she's here for that reason, we
Right.
can start
Yeah.
earlier. Lots of people around.
Yeah, so we can.
Who's going to be next?
Next is Matt. I
Next
think,
Matt.
I'm going to go check the green room. You can
Matt
get-
next?
Yeah. These things always run a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Thank God. Aspirationally speaking.
Did you like how we pulled those quotes out of the reference?
These folks will be impressing us, not impressing me.
No, I was impressed by that. Did you ever get a reference letter that starts with the first sentence like that one did? My gosh.
I heard, actually, what's really funny is we talk about reference letters. So I got a Facebook message from my former dean of students at Bowdoin. And I haven't talked to Ken I haven't talked to him since I was at Bowdoin. So that was 1990. And he reached out to say hello. So we're going to plan to get together for this summer. I haven't seen him in 35 years. But honest to God, what an amazing guy. Like just, and it really does touch you because it's like 35 years later, it's like he's reaching out to me. Like, why? Because I know that he had a pretty big influence on my life in that, well, I was the president of my fraternity, so every Monday morning I'd go to chemistry at 8, and then at 9 o'clock I was in his office to talk about whatever happened during the weekend and what we were going to do to assuage the neighbors and their complaints. But I think it was really the first time that I had anybody outside of my family and outside of friends of the family, like an adult, that would listen to me as an adult and would talk to me as an adult, would converse with me, not as a kid. And he never did that. He never put on this air of being.
And he was the dean of what?
He was the dean of students.
Yeah.
He never put on the air of being anything other than just somebody that I was working with.
Yeah.
And
The same with me with this guy Bob Sherwood at Boston College. We had a dinner. It was before freshman year, before orientation. It was a dinner for families whose parents were sending their students there who were also went to Boston College. And this guy was like, hey, this is my first day, can I sit with you guys? Because we had just talked, just were there and saw him. And he sat with us and we became friends until, I think I owe him a phone call. But definitely all these years, we always keep in touch.
I can't wait to see Ken. I think I saw, now that I think back, it was a couple years after I graduated. My friend and I owned a landscape company, and we had actually accepted a job in Brunswick for, I went to the school with his daughter, and he wanted to re-landscape his whole house. I mean, you can't imagine how big this guy's house was. It was like, landscaping around the Louvre. But anyways, we went up and we actually met with Ken, and we had a cookout at his house and sat around. It was just a really, really nice guy. But I mean, I don't know, it was one of those things that I thought about, and I was like, wow, like, pretty cool that he reached out, because I hadn't thought about them in years, and so it'd be interesting to catch up with them. How do we do, Aaron?
Test. Good, I just going to test.
I was getting complaints.
Oh, maybe it was just not close enough.
Probably.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I'm going to wait for Matt.
Is he here? Okay. Probably flying down Main Street on 110 miles an hour.
He's not due to arrive at 7:15.
Okay. I probably would text our other lady, Amy, and let her know that we're running early. So that way, and Matt's a little bit late. I mean, because again, you know, giving 45 minutes for these interviews. Sometimes 45 minutes goes, it seems like it's over like that, and other times you're 25 minutes into it and you've got some pretty concise answers, and you're like, okay, like this one, pretty concise. Now, I remember when we did, interviews for Gina's position before, and it's a little bit different than superintendent. Superintendent tends to be, I tend to be a little bit more verbose, broader scope of things to talk about. Student services is usually pretty focused. Yeah, so.
Our first round was.
Is he here?
They were a solid hour. Everyone was like a solid hour for the first round.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. The questions were meatier.
Yeah.
I would say. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
Screening.
because when you get to this point, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so the
Yeah.
screening committees, I mean, obviously, well, I mean, based on one candidate, I mean, he's a pretty viable candidate.
Mm-hmm.
His experience is impressive. Love his innovation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really
So
kind of
do
a
we.
good thing. Yeah, I mean, I developed my own handbook. And by the way, I'm developing a handbook for parents.
Right.
Like, ooh, boy, isn't that nice?
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
for parents, first time parents, and the kid has an IEP, being able to sort of navigate that, understanding how the whole process works. And then a website specific to student services.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I can't imagine what else you have in your, swirling around in your brain that's waiting to leak out.
Mm-hmm.
How are the sun chips, Dave? I said, how are the sun chips?
Better than the other ones, the popcorn. Popcorn was stuck in my throat. Yeah, Bill, where did you do your residency?
UConn. So UConn affiliated hospitals. So University of Connecticut, John Dempsey, Hartford Hospital, St. Francis, New Britain General, Mount Sinai, Connecticut Children's. Yeah, there's a whole panoply of places where we worked. So all over the place.
Nice to see you again.
Hey, you're Matt?
Yes, I am.
I'm Bill. How are you?
Hey, Bill, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Make sure my name tag was correct.
Yeah, a hot seat. Definitely need to hydrate. Hi there, how you doing?
We didn't turn the lights on too bright. So
Okay. That's good, so it's not an interrogation room per se.
So when we were doing, you guys want a little levity before we start the interview. When we were interviewing for superintendent, not this past time, but the time before, we were doing it over here, and we had the superintendent candidate sitting, and I don't know how the lighting was, but I would swear that we had 5 magnifiers. And they were magnifying the sun. We had this poor candidate who was sitting there, and he was literally melting as he was talking to us. I had to get up and get him paper towels to wipe his
to what it was had. So
Couldn't take
it looks like it's much cooler over there.
I feel great.
There's not a lot of heavy light.
Yeah, no, climate control is good.
All right, good, perfect.
Like Nixon at the Kennedy debate.
You're right. If you get a little cold, maybe grab onto the electrical cord.
Yeah, hopefully my makeup won't run, you know, hopefully my hair won't get too tousled, you know. I'll try to compose myself.
Your microphone.
Oh.
Thank
So
you
you
for
said you're
that.
gonna have the, what's it called, SMR?
ASMR. Well, thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It will be about 45 minutes for the interview. We will each be asking you a series of questions. We will begin with introductions. We'll start with
Bill Von Tepe, we've met.
Yeah.
John Provost?
Michelle Boudreaux, School Committee Chair.
Cheryl Carolina.
Mike Terabassi.
Lisa Murray.
Hi, Sean Kennedy from Oakham, I'm also the vice chair.
Do I speak, do I press to speak?
No.
Yes, the green light's on, so yep, as long as you speak into the microphone, that would be great.
Good evening. My name is Matt
I
Halsall.
would recommend moving it a little closer, actually.
Okay, yeah, you just got it. How's that?
Perfect.
Good.
So if we could begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to apply for the position?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, let me just start by thanking you. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to make it to the finalist round. Been very, very nicely treated throughout this process. Superintendent Provost and his team have been just fabulous. The first interview committee was excellent, both professional and also personable. So really grateful to be here, and it's an honor to make it to the finalist round. So I'll start there. I've been the Director of Student Services at Narragansett Regional for 4 years now. I'm in my 4th year currently. And prior to that, I was in Greenfield Public Schools as the Director of People Services there. I was not actively looking, but I happen to know by reputation Dr. Provost. He and I have a number of colleagues in common, and when I saw the posting come up for Hampton Wilbraham, I couldn't resist the temptation to reach out and ask folks what the experience was like for them in the past. And so sort of based on positive recommendations of colleagues, I decided to reach out and apply and sort of put myself out there for this role. Since I did, I've taken some time to learn a little bit more about the district. I've driven the district, I've seen the schools, I've talked briefly to various members of the school community and gotten a sense of the community here and some of the interesting things that are on the horizon. I've certainly tracked some of the news that's gone on. So I feel like this is a really, at least to an outsider looking in, this looks like a very healthy school system with a lot of really promising new things on the horizon. And so it just seemed like the right thing to do would be to apply here. I am, previous to my administrative experience, I have 6 years in government, state government. I worked for the State Department of Education here in Massachusetts, and then prior to that in Texas, I also worked for the State Department. And my focus has always been on educator development and on the ability of teachers and the school staff to meet the needs and educate successfully kids with IEPs, just a neurodiverse population in general. IEPs, English learners, any student who's kind of coming a little bit outside the mainstream in any way. That's the group that I've always been supportive of, professionally, and that's where my professional career begins. I taught special education for 7 years at the middle and high school levels. I was jack of all trades, as special education teachers often are. I was also a reading therapist, so I did a lot of multi-sensory reading interventions, and so I come at it with a literacy lens. But more broadly, I think just that desire to help kids with slightly neurodiverse, different ability levels to succeed and to thrive in the public school setting and to be included, part of the life of the school. That's always kind of been my core value.
Thank you.
I'm next.
Okay.
From the standpoint of your own career, what would be 3 of the most important accomplishments you believe you have made in the past few years?
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that question. I think in the past few years, I have been with Narragansett. I think the 3 of the things that we've done have all been related to sort of emerging from the pandemic and trying to emerge strong and come out, having learned something from this experience. I think there's a lot of
there's a lot of press out there about how public schools had this opportunity to learn from the pandemic, and they did. Well, I think that they did, and I think that we all did. And so one thing that we've really taken advantage of in Narragansett is the technological platform for classroom education, the Google Classroom, those various things. And we've actually used that to great impact for students by allowing for kids in our therapeutic programs to have more access to general education teachers. And that's really forged out of a partnership between our special education teacher and our related service providers and then the general education teachers. So at our high school level, we have a therapeutic reintegration program. That program has brought back 9 students from out-of-district placements in the past 2 years and brought them back into the life of the school. And not just into a therapeutic classroom, but actually integrated into the general education setting to varying degrees of their day, varying percentages of their day. And that's all because of the tools of Google Classroom and the collaboration between the professionals. But that piece where the special education teacher is able to see the day's lessons and access those things, access that curriculum, has really allowed us to connect the students who are coming back into our district to the general education teachers in a safe, supported, therapeutic, methodical fashion. So that program, I think, was probably the largest single accomplishment we've made in the past few years. We also implemented in our first year something called IMAS 2, which is a universal mental health screener. And it's a survey that's given to all of a student, K through 12, every parent gets the survey. K through 12, at least one teacher completes the survey for each student. And then 8 through 12, every student also does a self-report on this universal mental health screener. And so that's accomplished, I think, two big things. Number one is genuine, at times, life-saving interventions, clinical interventions for students who are at imminent risk of serious self-harm. That's the biggest thing. And I could stop there, right? You don't really need me to say any more than that. That justifies itself. But the other thing that it's done is it's given us a set of data around mental health that is a complement to our behavioral data and our academic data. And so really knowing that we're working with data has allowed us to drive the conversation forward in terms of promoting social-emotional well-being in our classrooms, giving our teachers tools to sort of approach what's going on with my student group and helping to craft that. So I think that set of data has really coalesced to our general education and special education staff around the therapeutic needs of our students. And then I would say that the third sort of major thing that we have accomplished or are in the process of accomplishing is to align our substantially separate programs, particularly our intellectual disability and severe needs autism programs across K through 12. So, that all started with a couple years ago. I funded an independent outside evaluation of the program in the district. Highly regarded person in the field, and she came through it and looked at the programs, talked to everybody, looked at the data, and sort of gave us some good guiding feedback. And so we're on the path of aligning these 4 programs. The students in the 18+ program named it Aspire, and for the life of me, I don't have the acronym off the top of my head, but it's a good acronym. It's an acronym. And so it's Aspire 1, Aspire 2, Aspire 3, Aspire 4, and we're gradually. The goal is not to have them be cookie cutter the same from elementary to middle to high, but rather more to be aligned so that students can have a trajectory that makes sense for them, for their individual needs through those programs. And the emphasis for me has always been it may be a specialized program to address specialized needs, and that's core, but we also need to be finding ways to make these students a part of the daily life of the school. And one thing, I'll add a fourth for the bonus, Special Olympics is back. It's back. All right. So unified athletics has been fabulous, but Special Olympics just sort of as, in the classic sense, we've started organizing that with our regional neighbors sort of in an ad hoc way, and it's been just tremendously fun. It brings everybody out. It's very unifying, and it's a big way to bring the kids into the lifeblood of the school setting.
Thank you.
All right. Can you please tell us about a challenge that you've conquered as an education leader, particularly one that you maybe are most proud of?
Sure. Well, unfortunately, maybe I planted the seed when I mentioned the pandemic a second ago to address that question. So I'll speak to that kind of briefly. I entered Narragansett in 2020, so in the first full school year of the COVID emergency shutdown. And like everybody else, we really struggled with, what's the model going to be in terms of how many days in person and all of those various configurations that we had to do. And so I was also new to the district at that time too, and so I had a lot of communication responsibilities, and we had to navigate very, very choppy waters without a very clear map to be, as I'm sure everybody here is well aware and remembers quite well. And I think what I'm most proud about that is not so much anything I personally did, but rather the way that our school community and our staff rallied to make sure that our highest need students were able to be in the building. We were at 4 days a week, very, very early in the shutdown. With all the proper precautions, and we had a full-time school nurse who was guiding us through, the various COVID regulations. But very quickly, and I would say we were probably top 5% in terms of how quickly we were able to get our students back in the classroom and get them exposed to their teachers and to their paraprofessionals. And for the most high needs group, and obviously, you all kind of worked through that as well. For that most high needs group, the remote learning was really, and I think we're seeing now some of the evidence of the impact that it had on all students, but for that group in particular, it really was not successful for the majority of that group. So getting them back in and giving them that educational, physical experience of being in a classroom with your peers and your teachers, even if you have to wear a mask and even if you have to put Lysol on everything, that really was a huge accomplishment for us as a district, was to bring them back. And then for me personally, it was also, although it was challenging, it was on some level, it helped build relationships, especially with building principals, because they're the ones who are writing the schedule and sort of negotiating the day-to-day with their staff. So it allowed me to be right in the thick of things with them, supporting them through that process, writing the schedule, writing criteria for which students. One thing that was really important to us was to treat the high needs group not only as our most significantly impacted special education students, but also our students who are in foster care, our students who are affected by homelessness. Those groups as well are ones who really depend on the school for academics, but a lot more than that too. So really making sure that we can take care of those protected classes of students. To do that in the thick of all the confusion of COVID, I look back now and I really think we did a fabulous job with that. And so I point to that as sort of the first answer.
All right, thank you. I think it comes over to me here. Positive, effective relationships with families are essential to collaboration, especially for students with unique needs. Can you discuss how you have effectively engaged and supported families when the district's perspective of the child's needs conflicts with the family's perspective?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it is a relationships business, and I think that's really important, regardless of differences at the IEP table or differences in sort of perspective. One thing I think that I've been able to do consistently, through my career, well beyond administration, has been to have and demonstrate genuine concern for individual students. Respect, concern, relationship with the students. And I think I may have told the story actually in my first interview, but we had a big CPAC, special education parent group, pizza night, meet and greet, really just trying to get people out and having childcare. And one parent came with two very young boys, and they were both, fairly significantly impaired. And she came in, and both of them came running over to me and said hello to me, and they knew my name and I knew their name. And she said, I was so nervous walking to this door, and then I saw you talking to my kids like you knew them, and I said, well, I do know them, they're really neat students. And so, there's certainly a chance down the road as those students get older that the district is going to have a different perspective on their needs than the parent will. And my hope, I think, I'm not necessarily part of the IEP team on an ongoing basis, but my hope is that the parent, knowing that district leadership and special education leadership has a genuine concern and interest for their child, that will help sort of mitigate any of the feeling like, oh, my child's just a number, it's just a budget. Like, I hope that when we have that kind of relationship, that they will understand that it is a genuine difference of opinion about the best ways to service the student, and not something that's simply like a number counting, bottom line kind of thing. So I think, that's really important, and although I'm not a part of the team necessarily, the fact that I care about your child and I'm involved in their education, I think that goes a long way with the family. Obviously, if things have gotten to a point where there's, extreme disagreement between the school and the family, then, we're gonna use other, all the tools at our disposal, and that includes meeting facilitation and mediation, and, there are a lot of different tools that we've drawn into. We've even worked with the SPEDEX program a little bit, which is a DESI pilot program for alternate dispute resolution. So, I'm a firm believer that wherever possible, we want to resolve our disputes at a local level. That we don't, the more we escalate things, the more the positions kind of get hardened. And so I found, I'll kind of wrap it up here. I found that maintaining an ongoing dialogue and having another team meeting, as long as the team meetings are civil and smooth, and we have great team chairs in Narragansett, so that's been the case. But as long as we're having civil, smooth team meetings, we can reconvene, and we can keep that conversation going, and we can try different things, and always just continue to problem solve, to get to the bottom of what the student needs. It's about the student.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is about leadership. Can you share your personal leadership philosophy, how you live it, and more importantly, how it has changed over your career?
That's great. I've been thinking about a model that's known as authentic leadership a lot, and it's something that it's sort of it's in the research on leadership, but it draws me because there are a few things that I think I certainly don't think that I hit every box on this model, but I think the things that I'm drawn to and that I align with have to do with sort of number one, transparency, relational transparency. I tend to be sort of I'm somebody that we're going to sit down and we'll have a conversation, and you're going to know how I feel about something. I'm going to do it in a courteous way, but I tend to be fairly direct and straightforward in my communication with everybody, professionally and personally, with friends and family too. I think that my values, I hope, come out clear. And the longer that I stay, it's funny. The longer I stay at administration, the more I draw on my teaching experience, as a sort of my moral core when it comes to what are we doing? What are we doing here? And you realize that the heart of it all is teaching and learning. We have to try to remove whatever barriers there are that are obstacles between the student and the learning, and just get to that. So getting to that teacher's heart. But that also connects to areas where I don't have a background. So I don't have a background in I'm not a clinician, I'm not a therapist, I don't have a mental health background. So being willing to engage with partners who do have that level of expertise and maintaining that sort of authentic respect for expertise and drawing on it and not trying to be an expert in things that I'm not. To put it bluntly. Another thing about authentic leadership that I think really speaks to me is lived experience. Having lived experience, I do identify as somebody with a disability. I'm pretty significantly hard of hearing, and that's something that's evolved over time for me, and so that's at the heart. I also have very close family members with significant disabilities, and so I've been around disability as a person, a family member, a friend. For my whole life, and so that sort of lived experience feeds into how I go about this work, which is to make sure that we are meeting people where they're at, and sort of the legal frameworks are really profound and complex, but at the heart of it there is sort of that moral task of teaching and learning, and respecting diversity and having a fundamental belief that neurodiversity is good for society. That's why I do this work, because I think that having a vast, a wide array of different neurotypes, if you will, is good for all of us. So those are some of the main pieces I think behind that authentic leadership piece. And you asked how it's changed over time, and I really appreciate that, because I will tell you all that I had a teaching career, and then I really kind of lucked out and I stepped into a government role. And that was an amazing 6-year ride in terms of understanding the legal and policy frameworks that underpin all of public education. So So that was kind of a wild jump. You know, I was in my early 30s when that happened, and it was kind of like, wow, this is, you know, this is eye-opening to see that. And I stepped immediately out of that policy world into this administrative role. And so I didn't have a super clear sort of, you know, build up into administration. And I will be totally honest, I mean, stepping into a role like that, having come from, you know, teaching from the classroom and from government, you know, there are a lot of pressures. And I think the truth is that things like budgetary pressure, legal pressure, you know, just the regulatory structures that we work within, both from the state, you know, from disputes with family, you know, there are so many, those pressures really were somewhat overwhelming, and it is hard. This is a hard job. I mean, you know, Dr. Provost can speak to it. You know, this job, it's very hard to, you know, adhere to all the various sort of, you know, regulatory and legal demands, and also stay focused on kids and on the needs of kids and supporting the staff who are supporting the kids. And, you know, and so that sort of coming back to that teacher's heart has been, I think, the biggest evolution the past 6 years as an administrator.
Excellent. Before I hand you over to Dr. Bontempi, why don't you take a couple sips of water? Take a little breath. No, everybody at this point, you've just been, this is roughly the halfway, I guess, right?
It's been a long day, too.
There you go.
You doing okay?
I'm doing great, yeah.
I think you're doing awesome. I think your answers are precise. They're on point. They're focused. As an interviewee, I'm telling you that you're doing very well. Knocking it out of the park.
It's nice to have ongoing feedback.
Well, it's also, well, at least to know where you sit, right? And it's also, you know, it's kind of like, okay, you know, I'm sitting here in this chair for 35 minutes, and, you know, maybe I've been talking about me, and, you know, maybe get some feedback to say how I did so far.
That's very nice. I appreciate that.
I'm going to go in reverse order, because you said something a minute ago. You were answering Sean's question, excuse me. Talking about budgetary pressures. And so, in your role, I'm sure you're involved in the development of special education budget. And so what are your priorities when you set out to do a special education budget? Narragansett, is that a regional school district?
It's a Truetown regional.
All right, yeah. So you have experience with regional school districts already, 4 years worth. So if you just take a couple minutes and just kind of run through us, you know, how you go about developing a budget, implementing a budget, where your priorities lie.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that question. And I think there's three main buckets that I tend to approach kind of separately as a special ed administrator. You know, one is the out-of-district budget, right? I mean, I think that's kind of the most sort of in my hands. And you know, something that I'm responsible for, you know, not only getting accurate numbers for the coming year, but also projecting out, you know, what do we have, what's over here, what's over here, you know, what are some of the things so there's no surprises. Because, you know, business, I don't know if anybody's worked in business offices, they don't love surprises when it comes to, you know, big tuitions and things like that. So trying to just do some projected modeling is you know, one really, I'd say probably the most important budgetary task in terms of the numbers, the size of the numbers for the out-of-district budget. And it's also the thing that I would probably do most with my door closed. You know, in the office, you know, maybe with the secretary or have somebody else on the phone, but you know, generally speaking, it's going to be, I feel like it's on my shoulders, and I'm going to, you know, have to own that. That's not my favorite part, though. You know, I think my favorite part, genuinely, is working with the building principals and the superintendent's office to figure out, you know, what are the immediate staffing needs of the buildings. And the way that we've done budgets in Narragansett, I like this. I'm flexible, but I do like trying to have, even specialized programs, those staff be the principal, you know, sort of within the principal's budget, as opposed to something that I, quote unquote, own, or it's my area of control. And then that's an opportunity for me, you know, number one, most importantly, to work with the principal and you know, figure out, do you have what you need? Do you have too much? Do you have too little? Like, what's the right staffing for the kids that you have coming up next year? So those are really great conversations for me. And the truth is that they can be fairly informal. You know, it doesn't have to be sort of perfect. What I need is broad strokes. Like, how many teachers do you need? How many paraprofessionals do you think you need? You know, and we kind of rough that out. And then I work more closely with the business manager to, you know, precisely figure out what are we talking about staffing-wise per building. That's the second. And then the third is, you know, I just had this recent experience that I shared of creating new programming. And new programming, I'm certainly going to work with the building principal on that, but that again I think falls into more squarely into my lap, and it's something that I'm going to be developing with whatever clinical staff are also helping support that new programming. You know, and really it does come down to mainly staffing in terms of, you know, what's the program going to need for staffing, you know, what are some revenue sources for that. I mean, I've been fairly creative in my career about, you know, finding good grants, bringing in students with tuition, bringing in students, you know, there are ways to, you know, to generate revenue as well, as of course you know. And so I think we've been able to do a lot of creative things to get programs up and running in the past, and I think that's a big part of this job too. That's not an every year thing. Obviously, you're not propping up a new program or starting up a new program every year, but you know, it certainly comes. And then reconfiguration of programs, I know that's something that, you know, is an active discussion here, and always, but particularly with the school configuration questions that are you know, at hand. So you know, things like that are always I think more squarely in my bandwidth or my you know, bailiwick than just sort of your overall special ed staffing. So those are the three broad approaches. I really tend to follow the superintendent's lead on sort of, you know, when do we need the hard numbers, and when are we having sort of an ongoing conversation? Because I think one problem we can have, you know, type A, what about sequential, you know, but we're going to get the numbers down, we're going to give it to you in October. And it's like, well, that's not really what the process is. The process needs to breathe a little bit, and the community needs a chance to speak and to react to, you know, ideas. And so sometimes you're better off, you know, not coming with hard numbers and hard. You know, what you want to do is kind of open a dialogue, and folks usually need something to react to be in part of a dialogue, school committees as well as, you know, sort of community at large. So I've always kind of, you know, followed the superintendent's lead. Whatever they need, I'm going to provide that to foster that conversation as a part of a larger district-wide budgetary effort.
Your dialogue about the third bucket segues perfectly. It's almost like you could predict what the next question was going to be, because you talked about new programs. And as an educator, I think, you know, when you were talking about coming into this district, one of the things that you were talking about was how you learned how we want to develop a community of thinkers, right? And we're not just developing a community of learners. We're not just sort of feeding information, but we're teaching people how to think critically and how to synthesize solutions and how to work through them in your head. Education is a lot about innovation. And so if you can share with us maybe some ideas that you have in terms of innovating the position of Director of Student Services, what ideas? And I'm not asking you for, you know, concrete plans, but, you know, aspirationally, like what kinds of things would you see yourself endeavoring to try out as in terms of innovative programming?
I think that's the most fun interview question I've had in many years, and it's a great question for me. I really appreciate it because I told you my trajectory has been atypical, right? I mean, you know, I kind of from the classroom to the government and into this role, but what I didn't tell you is that in my first month or two working for the Texas Education Agency, I sat in a round table. My little service center, we supported 60 school districts in Central Texas. We sat in a round table with the special ed directors from all those districts, plus, you know, maybe the coordinator. This was a really big group. And we were doing activities, and so I was having a lot of really high intensity conversations with these folks. And from that day, the type of personality that it takes to do this job, you know, where you have to be able to balance, you know, the legal regulatory things, the fiscal complexities, you know, the staff supporting these staff. These staff are, I mean, these are amazing human beings. And I'm not just saying these are some of the greatest human beings that America has. Our special education professionals. So supporting those staff, and then of course the students. You know, the students are that's the heart of it all. And so getting to know these folks, and of course, you know, no two people do it the same. But getting to know these folks and realizing the level of, you know, sort of empathetic and the heart that goes into it, the brain power that you have to put into it, the work that you have to put into it, and the discipline that you have to maintain. I just started watching these folks, and I was in a role of providing technical assistance, professional development to them and to mostly to their staff, but just getting to know them and getting to know so many different folks doing this job, it really planted the seed for me. And I'm from Massachusetts originally, and I was moving back to the state. I lost somebody in my family in 2014, and the time was right, and so it was time to come back to Mass. And I was looking at roles around the state in education, I have always sort of seen this role as special ed administrator as kind of a trajectory for me. Not knowing what that meant, other than that's an interesting job, and the people who do it are really interesting people. But again, this isn't all about your superintendent, but your superintendent sits on the Journal of Special Education Leadership, advisory board, and I've read that magazine for journal for many years, and I'm very genuinely intrigued by the model of what is this, what is this job? How do you do this job? And so I guess I'm not sure that that's the innovative idea that I was kind of alluding to earlier, but I'll just, is that you, as long as you put the students first, and you follow the law, and you work well with everybody, this job is what you make of it. And so, there's nothing to stop you from, connecting with kids and staff and the parent. All that stuff is a part and parcel of what the role can be. I have, not always gleefully, but I've been pulled into, supporting building administration and student disciplinary thing. That's not really where I want to go with it, but this role has that component too, that direct responsibility for kids as well as all the other pieces to it. I think in terms of where things can go, it really is it's a two-way dialogue with the community and with the schools in the community and the educators that are there. But I think having a willingness to take chances, to try things, to explore new ideas, that's essential. I think that comes first.
Cool. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Okay, last question.
Oh.
And it's a short one. But I'd like you to have some fun with it.
Yeah, I bet.
Put your microphone on, Cheryl.
Sorry. Okay, basically, what do you do when you're not thinking and eating and sleeping school? What do you do for fun? What's your life like?
Oh, what a wonderful question, and thank you for being the last one. And also, thank you for getting it on the record that I'm allowed to have fun with the question. That's great, appreciate that. Well, so, Dr. Provost knows I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old in my household. So my recreational activities have, that lens has shifted. But it has really informed my professional career, as to be a father. And so, most of what we do now is built around the kids, but I think one thing that I had a college professor, as a philosophy major coming out of high school. I graduated high school in central Massachusetts, and then decided to move to New Mexico and study philosophy. And that was kind of my path. And I had a professor who was talking about his kids, about how he raised his kids, and he said he made this kind of throwaway comment, but it always stuck with me as as a young person. He said, we just like to make sure they have lots of really interesting experiences. And it was such a casual thing to say, but it really does. It kind of informs how I go about raising my own kids too. I mean, our focus right now is when are we going to get to go to Egypt and check out this new Grand Egyptian Museum that they're building in Cairo, where they're gonna have all of the unbelievable artifacts in one place. So, I mean, I think as my kids get older, one piece of advice that my in-laws gave me was follow their interests and enjoy it with them. So I think that's kind of unfortunately not unfortunately, but my spare time is pretty consumed there. I do have a bit of a problem with reading. I'm an extremely voracious reader of fiction, so that does consume whatever waking hours I have. Not too late in the night anymore. That has definitely ended. Although both boys sleep pretty well, including the 1-year-old. They both sleep through the night every night, and they're great. They're doing really well. We live in a beautiful part of the country, and so we're out and about a lot. My wife and I are big road trippers. With the boys, our road trips have been, confined a little bit more. We don't go on multi-days anymore, but we still try to just get out and about. One of the big reasons why I decided to move back to Massachusetts, I'd always been planning on it, but wanting to be closer with my family, my extended family. I have cousins in like 5 different states, so and then I have a brother who's in Central Mass. So we go out of our way to really maintain that family bond and just sort of have a lot of those social opportunities with each other as a group. I'm constantly. We live close to UMass, so we have an excellent database, or Rolodex. We have an excellent Rolodex of babysitters, so we're constantly going out to shows and movies and theater and stuff, and we do try to maintain some degree of a cultural life, despite, like the instinct is to go to bed at 8 p.m., at the latest. Like that's the instinct, but really try to fight that instinct, especially on the weekends, and be out and about. Is really essential. And then another piece, which actually comes back to Bill's question, is around the engagement with the school community and doing fun things after school on the weekends, being a part of the athletics program and the theater, and just attending those things and just being a part of that, because I think that is one of the best things about working in schools and with kids is that you have access to all this great cultural stuff that's happening all the time. So let me see, is there anything that I'm missing there that I should really hit? Oh, I'm actually quite involved in town government too. I serve on Amherst Finance Committee, co-chair the Cultural Council. So I am. I like that kind of civic re-engagement or civic engagement stuff, and especially that's been nascent with being a first-time homeowner, being a first-time father. Those kinds of things have bred in me this desire to be more of service to the community as well. So. That sounds an awful lot like work when I say it out loud, but I actually do take joy in it, and I forge relationships out of it too.
Thank you. It doesn't sound like work, it sounds like your resume. I read it in there. That's great.
And speaking from, I think I can speak for everybody on the committee with regards to having children as they grow, the hours will come back to you.
I've heard, I've been told.
The time, that you will reclaim some of that time, not all of it, but a significant portion of it.
Well, can I tell you that maybe the highlight of my March was the 2 boys came home from daycare, and the 1-year-old is just now walking, 1.5, he's just now walking, and it's just sort of like mediating play, like who's going to get Papa to play with them the most, and that's like the constant thing. And they came in, said hello, put the stuff down or whatever, and I looked over, and my older son's door was closed, and both of them were gone. I just realized, oh my gosh, they're playing with each other, and I know that's only going to, hopefully, knock on wood, that's only going to grow. What a moment. I took a picture of that closed door, I sent it to my wife, I said, honey, I think we made it, and so it's the beginning of making it, special stuff.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Do you have any other additional information that you would like to share with us that you did not feel came out in the questions that we asked you?
I think that you got a pretty good picture of who I am and what I stand for and how I go about this work. And it was funny in the first round, which you were there for, I think we had a pretty good boisterous conversation, and then Dr. Provost asked a question about, and then talk to me about all the rules and regulations that you have to follow, And so I want you to know that I really go out of my way to try as much as possible to wear this stuff lightly, and to go about it with like I said, a teacher's heart and with the students at the center. But I also realize that this position, it really does carry an immense amount of fiscal and legal liability, and it's something that I take very, very seriously. And I work very closely with my central office, with our legal counsel, with all the resources that we have at our disposal to follow the law and maintain a tranquil school environment, and that really is the heart and soul of it. And it's one of the things that does motivate me is having that experience with government. You understand that although everything is within a context and it's all within a system, and the American system of education is it's not it's not a standardized system by any stretch, and that's one of the things that makes it such a beautiful thing, is that every town, operates its own system, we have standard sets of laws that, that govern all of that, but we each govern ourselves, within our own capacities. And so, maintaining that kind of the fiscal, legal, and sort of overall regulatory compliance, that I think is at the heart of this role, and it's something that I take seriously, because I know I try to keep it light in the interview, but I just want to reiterate that point.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
So many, and yet, I know you have multiple candidates and all of that. I guess I am most curious from the committee, and I've heard from, Dr. Provost a little bit, but I'm from the committee, what are you, with the configuration of the schools as it currently is, what do you see as the biggest area of need within special education programming? Where would you like to see it grow and go in the next couple of years? That's a loaded question.
No, it's a great question. It is actually probably one of the most appropriate questions that you could answer, or that you could ask. And it shows a familiarity with some of the angst that is currently at play within the district. As we look at building utilization, as we look at grade configuration, special education plays a huge role in that. And I would make a comment to you specifically, because you asked the question, that, it's going to take a strong leader. And so what I think I would be looking for is somebody who can, who can develop a relationship with, with sort of all of the interested parties, and forge a special education program that can, sort of, I think, maximize the effect that we have on children's education, but also keeping in mind that some of the programming may have to occur around some type of configuration, some type of grade configuration, or some type of building utilization, and to be able to have flexibility in your approach to special education programming that would allow the education of students to thrive. I want somebody that, no matter how we split up our students into the buildings, I want to know that their education is still the best that it can be.
I appreciate that. And that's something that, without understanding the nitty-gritty of the configuration questions, that is like, because when I think about some of the opportunities and challenges that this district, faces with regards to special education, those grade bands will, having a smaller number of grade bands will create a lot of really interesting opportunities. I genuinely think so. Without having studied it super closely, I wouldn't, I wouldn't make any kind of recommendation, but I am intrigued by that, the scenario that you all have right now.
Yeah, I would say that, communication and, I guess for a better word, humanity, bringing the humanity back into it. I mean, we have a lot of decisions and moving parts and stuff that can really get very technical sometimes, but we need to make sure that we don't lose the love of the students and the love of education.
That's a wonderful thing to hear, especially in a public meeting. I appreciate that.
Anyone else?
Feeling peer pressure.
You don't have to say
Kind
that.
of turn your question around a little bit, and like maybe you might be asked with your question you asked, what challenges do you think might be waiting for you coming here? And I think you already touched on the fact, like for the size of our school district, we have our kids spread out among a lot of buildings, and I think that one thing that we might be struggling with is having special education services really feel like a really good cohesive team across all the different buildings in the school district. So having that, supporting your team as their leader, I think may be one of the bigger challenges that, you know, that we would offer for you to be excited to,
You know, I really appreciate the frankness, because I see that, you know, I see that, but I also see, you know, without presuming any kind of solution, I see that as an opportunity to connect with folks and figure out, you know, what do you value about your current you know, your current role, and you know, what could be improved. And so it's an opening to a dialogue, I can say that much.
Do you have any other questions for us?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, just so you know, we will be contacting you this evening. So if before you leave, you can just make sure that Aaron has your contact information and you have your phone. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the question.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Biological.
She's here.
That's what we were just saying.
You don't have to, I'll just give you a pat on the shoulder there. How you doing? Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Can they hear all of our wrapper crunching right now?
I know. I just stopped eating, you know.
The bottle thing was hilarious.
It's funny, it was right there, and the microphone was on, so you got the...
I was like, wow, that would have been a fun job if that was like true, right?
You know.
More intimate.
Yeah, it is.
It's more intimate. The only issue.
No, not with me, like the big, but even, I mean, I don't know, it's too much for us. And even when we have other things, like, everyone thinks it's not like, oh, you're right.
You could always too just cut down the width of your table setup, so rather than having two tables on one end, right?
Right.
I feel like you're like.
They've been trying to limit the use of safe rooms for a long time, and it is given heightened scrutiny and their program monitoring that we just have to do. year. So we're not getting rid of them, we're just making sure that we use them. Agreed. But you need to make sure that the doorknobs work right.
Yes, yes,
so that
yes,
you can see if there aren't sharp objects and all that kind of stuff. I was there too.
So, is that true?
No.
So you let me
Put those one back in the ice. Get it a little colder.
Another thing that cheeses and gotta hurry. Yeah, that's when it's a sensitive matter. Yeah. Do you know who did it? Who did the interview?
I'm eating in the back.
Jake, Steve, and Joe. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Come in, you're Amy. Come in, have a seat, join us. Sorry, you caught us in between seconds.
Oh, that's all right.
So everybody's grabbing a little snack.
Testing, testing.
I see people munching on chips. That's what it is.
Dinner?
Did you get her a new water, or is that her water?
Yeah, I gave that to her. Thank you.
No, I want to make sure she has water.
Oh.
There you go.
I
That's
have-
my big,
I have water.
I'm the water guy. Yeah.
Water boy.
I can use some,
That's what I want.
wow.
All right, hi there, good evening. Thank you for having me. Well, welcome, thank you for being here, we appreciate it. Absolutely. Just to let you know, we have about approximately 45 minutes for the interview. We will going to be asking you a series of questions, but we will begin with introductions. Okay, wonderful.
Oh, sorry.
Introduce.
Hi, Bill Bonsetti. I am school committee member representing Wolverhampton.
Nice to meet you.
John Provost, good to meet you again.
I'm Michelle Boudreau, school committee chair. Hi, nice to meet you.
Carol, representing it.
Nice to meet you.
Mike Tarabasi, Wilbraham.
Nice to meet you.
Lisa Marie Wilbraham.
Nice to meet you.
I am Sean Kennedy. I'm also the vice chair, and I'm from Wolverine.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you again for having me. Excited to be here. So we will begin with just asking you if you could share a little bit about yourself and what brought you to apply for the position.
Sure. So I have been in special education for a total of about 35 years. I have been in special education administration for about 23 years of that time. So I started as a special education teacher and have worked my way up into special education administration. I was a special ed coordinator in Connecticut in Region School District 13, and then moved in to become a special ed director in District 13, which was a regional district as well. I was there for about for a good portion of time, probably for about 24 years or so, in total 27 and a half years in the district for quite a bit of time, which was really a great experience in terms of my career and learning in a district that size. That was a regional district. And then from there, I relocated to a much larger district in Massachusetts, which was Billerica, which was a much larger district, 10 schools, very large district, had over 1,100 special ed students, so it was quite a shift for me, but really a wonderful experience in terms of learning from really a larger systems perspective, and really gave me the opportunity to understand, really coming from Connecticut into the Massachusetts system. I came into Billerica in a situation where there had been, I think, some difficulty in terms of how special ed had been received in Billerica and how that working relationship between the special education department and regular ed had existed previous. I also had entered at a time where there had been some I think, difficulties within the department. The board had, or school committee had requested a NASDAQ report, and that had actually been completed at the time that I was presented to the school committee, so I was able to hear about that when I first arrived. And so I had my work cut out for me when I arrived, and got right to work and was able to address those concerns really within the first year, despite having my coordinator go out unexpectedly on medical leave when she was having twins. But that was okay because, I had a strong group of staff, a strong team behind me. I'm a hard worker, and I was excited to be there and do the work. So I was proud to say that we addressed those issues right away within the first year because we needed to get that work done so that the kids could get what they needed, during that time. And then during that time I was there, obviously the pandemic occurred, so that was interesting to kind of shift a very large department into sort of the remote kind of situation. We were able to do that again with a lot of really strong work with my department, with my teachers, my staff, fellow administrators, and we were able to do that successfully. And then from there, moved back to Connecticut to be back with family. My children had gotten married, both of them, and both ended up having children. So we relocated back to Connecticut to be close to family. So I was with my family back in Connecticut and worked in the school district there. Did have some family medical health issues shortly after arriving in Connecticut, so ended up taking some time. Needed to really step back for that period of time. Those luckily have been resolved, and so now I'm looking to come back into the profession that I love so much. And really we're looking at coming, I think, back to Massachusetts because I really feel like Massachusetts has a very, I think, family, student, parent positive relationship for students in special education. I think very different than I think where Connecticut is, having now experienced both. So I wanted to look, obviously being in Connecticut, somewhere close, where I could still drive to, but also, as I had said in my first interview, a place where connected and aligned with my values as a professional and personally. Somewhere where it looked at students as individuals, in an inclusive environment. So when I was looking, and I had said when I looked at the website here, one of the first things that pops up is an inclusive picture of special ed students with their staff members and their teachers, which you don't often find. And when you look at your mission statement and your vision, and you look at your core values, those align with my core values. And that's the kind of district where I see myself and where I would want to be. So that's what drew me here. So I'm again pleased to be here talking to you tonight. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
From the standpoint of your own career, what would be 3 of the most important accomplishments you believe you've made in the past few years?
Great question. So I would say that the first would be my impact on student learning and student progress. And that would be for the whole range of students in special education. So it's not just about the students that we often see included in our classrooms, right, that are with their peers in typically gen ed classrooms that are on that sort of track to go into typically, you know, a college placement type of setting. I have had great success with students along that line, but it's also around those students that are in the placements that are more in that subset, right, placements that are really working towards those life skills, those vocational trainings, making sure that those programs have as much rigor and high quality type of program, resources, expectation of excellence so that those students are supported and prepared for when they leave us and enter, you know, adult type of agencies, supported placements. So really that's one of my first, most really, I think proud, the accomplishments that I'm most proud about. The second would be my ability and my experience in mentoring a large number of staff members, from paraprofessionals, substitutes, volunteers, along the way of my career, because I feel deeply about supporting the field of special education. It's a tough field, but it's an important field, and we have to support and work with those that also have the love for special ed, but that need that mentorship and that support to continue to grow and develop, to become teachers and administrators in the field. So I'm very proud of that work that I've done along the way. And then the other piece would be about my relationships, working with regular ed staff and administrators as partners in that work, because in order to have a successful program and to be able to do quality programming, we have to do that in partnership. And that also includes with families and guardians, because we have to do that as a community. We can't do that alone. So those would be my 3 accomplishments.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I was kind of contemplating your answer there.
Oh, that's okay.
All right. Can you please tell us about a challenge that you've conquered as an educational leader, one that you are particularly proud of?
I would say I would have to go back to, I had a parent who had two young sons who were quite disabled, and she was a mom who was very, she really struggled. She was very passionate about wanting her 2 sons to be successful, to learn how to read, to be able to be academically successful. But she struggled in really understanding the special ed process and understanding how the process worked and whether her students, really being able to understand whether her students were truly making progress. And so the way that she communicated with staff was sometimes could be seen as aggressive, and there were often tears and frustration on the part of staff as well as the parent, and that conflict led to, you know, a lot of frustration, and it was difficult in terms of, you know, how to make that relationship work well, so that the focus became on what was important about working towards what was right for the students, instead of sort of the stuff that was happening outside of that piece of that. So when I came in, I had to really sort of sort through what was happening and try to figure that out. And hear both sides, right? So you had staff that was that were frustrated, and you had the parent that was frustrated, and both sides, I had to listen to both sides and understand where both sides were coming from, and then figure out how do I help to have both sides come together to work together so that we were doing what was right for the students, because that's really what we were there for. And I had to send that solid message and that strong message that this is what we were here for, so how are we going to problem solve and make this work, right? So I had to validate that the parent had some legitimate concerns that we as the team needed to be able to answer for her, that we needed to provide data, that we needed to be able to answer the questions in a way that she could understand what was happening for her students. And I also then had to work with the parent to have her understand that when she was concerned or frustrated or maybe misunderstanding or not getting what maybe the information she was looking for and the way she was looking for, how to communicate that in a way that maybe didn't put off the staff or make them upset or, cry, so that both sides could get what they needed so that we could do the work that was necessary for the two students. And so I was proud to do that work, and with the work that was done, both students ended up successfully graduating from high school, and both attended post-secondary programs. One was graduated from college and got a very lovely note, and the other graduated from his post-secondary program. So it was a very long journey, but it was one that taught me quite a bit as a leader in terms of the importance of communication with parents, as well as understanding the need between parents and staff when there are issues that are occurring at the team level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is, I think, similar to what you had just said, but with a little different slant to it. Positive, effective relationships with families are essential to collaboration, especially for students with unique needs. Can you discuss how you have effectively engaged and supported families when the district's perspective of the child's needs conflicts with the family's perspective?
Yeah, so that was one example. That definitely was one. Very
That's
strong.
why
Very right. But I have another. So in my other district, when I came in, I quickly learned of a parent where there was a lot of sort of frustration between the parent and the school district because the parent felt that their students should qualify for services and had requested an evaluation multiple times, and multiple times the student had not been found eligible, and it was evident that it was clear that both sides were frustrated with one another, and so I came in and tried to, again with open eyes, really look clearly at both sides. In terms, without any judgment, listening to both sides, because it was important for me to do that, to look at what was in the record, what was in the evaluations. I had a separate meeting with the parent, I had a separate meeting with the school staff, so that I could gather all of that information and look at that objectively. And when I looked at that objectively, I saw that there was really a good case for what the parent was saying in terms of there was some real question around eligibility, and there was some pieces that we as the district had not really looked at, that without those additional pieces, I didn't feel comfortable that we had really answered that question around true eligibility. So I tried to be really objective, and I had to do it in a way that didn't look like I was favoring the parent because she was a highly emotional, very sort of outspoken parent, right? So I had to look like I wasn't sort of giving in, right, in that sort of perception. But, so I made that clear that I was looking at the objective data, and it was really about putting together the list of, when we look at eligibility, we look at all of this. When I do the audit of what we did prior to my arrival, these are the pieces that you guys did, but here are the pieces that we didn't do. And because we didn't do that, I'm not comfortable that we did everything before we truly can determine eligibility. So I made it objective. So I didn't make it about pointing fingers at staff, because I think they did think they did everything. But by doing it in an objective sort of audit way about the facts of the process, it was about the process and not pointing fingers at the staff. It also helped them understand more about how to do the process comprehensively, so that in the next time it helps them learn to do it in that more comprehensive way. So in doing that, we did find that there was eligibility for that student. And so the student became eligible, but then I was also very careful about how I described that I was present at the meeting, so that that communication was very clear, and I used the same list in front of the parent as I did with staff, so that it wasn't, the messaging wasn't about, again, pointing fingers at the staff, like, oh, they missed something, so that, there wasn't that messaging with the parent either. So it worked out in a way that gave the staff more training, and it was also objectively the right decision in the process for the student. You're welcome.
The next question is about leadership. Can you please share your personal leadership philosophy, how you live it, and a little more importantly, how it has changed over your career?
So my personal leadership philosophy is that leadership is not always from the front. That leadership is often from the side or from behind. And then what I mean by that is that I've learned over the years that to be a leader, I initially thought that you had to sort of be in the front of the room, you had to have all the answers, you had to be able to, direct people and sort of have every answer and make sure that everything was going, according to plan, and everything was, very structured. And I've learned that that's not the way that leaders really should work, right? Leaders really need to be able to build capacity and confidence. And I talked about that in my previous interview, because my role as a leader is to build the confidence and capacity of my team, right? Because I want them to be able to make, again, good decisions, because they have knowledge and confidence and capacity about the process and the procedures as it pertains to special education, decision-making, and things like that. And I want to be there to support them, again, by being by their side or being behind them, right? Helping them either process it and ask questions of me, support them in understanding the process, ask questions, get them resources, build their capacity, collaborate with them. And so overall that's changed for me. So initially when I started, it was about, leading from the front, making sure I had all the answers, that I knew everything that I was supposed to know. And if I didn't know the answers, I would get the answers and, make sure I got that right back to them. But now I understand more the importance of being able to lead from the side, from behind. And I understand that importance of mentoring and developing leadership and confidence and capacity in the folks that work with me, because it makes us all better, and it makes us, as a team, better able to make good decisions for the kids that we work with.
All right, thank you. Here I usually tell people to take a sip of water, but you already have, I'm saying, so you're roughly about halfway through our questions. So I'm going to send it over to
Yeah, there's no shot clock or anything, so you can't really reference. You're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. Your answers are they're crisp, they're on point. I hope you're not nervous because, you know, in a way, you're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you. You know, so it is an important job, and you know, it's a job that carries with it a very broad set of responsibilities. I have a couple questions for you. The first, I think, is you spent an awful lot of time in Region 13.
Yes.
You were there for the bulk of your career.
Yes.
And that says an awful lot for you as a special education administrator, because I don't think I've seen that type of longevity. I mean, that's pretty impressive. As a matter of fact, that's highly impressive. In the time that you were the People Services Director at Region 13, and even your time in Billerica, what types of innovative programs are you most proud of? And then, as a dovetail to that, because you really do have a wealth of experience in special education, just sort of aspirationally, like, what other types of innovations might you be interested in pursuing? And there's no judgment on it. I'm just curious to see where your imagination takes you.
I have quite the imagination. So some of the things, so I have a lot of wheels in my head, as I tell my husband. So in terms of District 13, I think what was great there was I had a lot of opportunities, and speaking of mentorship, my superintendent there was one that encouraged leadership, and so I was able to sort of use that imagination and encouraged to sort of think outside the box. And so some of the things that I'm most proud of would be, for example, the development of or expansion of the Transition Academy, which was our 18 to 22-year-old program, and that was on our the Wesleyan campus, which was a college campus right downtown in Middletown, which was the city. And so not only were we able to go from one teacher, one student in a classroom in one of the buildings on the campus, but I was able to kind of figure out that they had some of these houses that were on the campus that were kind of run down, but kind of connected with one of the facilities manager who had a daughter who was older, and she was in a wheelchair, and she had not had that kind of experience. And we had been talking. I said, oh yeah, like what happens with those houses? Would they ever, what do you do with those? So long story short, I was able to connect with some other folks at Wesleyan, and we were able to convince them to allow us to rent the property and then also renovate renovate a house, so that we were able to renovate a house, so that we were able to then bring in more students, tuition-based from other school districts by just a small tuition amount. And we created a tuition-based program, covered the whole cost of all of the staff to do that, plus over $500,000 in tuition to the district. And it had a computer lab, it had vans, the kids went out to job sites. We also then expanded into the community college that was right down the road, so the kids could take, they weren't ready for community college courses, but they were able to audit courses like art class, and so we were able to do that over time. And so that was really, for me, a remarkable experience. They were able to go into the cafeteria and hang out with their peers in the adult room. They were able to do and bake in the kitchen on campus to be able to have job sites. So it was all very specific to the kids within that community. So some of our graduates were able to come back and work as mentors within our community on that campus. So I was very proud of that work. Another innovative program that I did was I decided that our preschool program was really very short, and really too short, probably about and I actually, the way I presented it was the length of a Star Wars movie when we thought about that, and the way that I presented it to the school committee was the opening of Star Wars. It's like we teach all of our preschoolers all of this information in the length of a Star Wars movie, which was not enough time. So, and I really wanted the direction to be more towards STEAM, science, technology, education, arts, and math. And so we were able to get approval to expand that time to be able to allow expansion to that additional curriculum to more of a 4-hour program. So that was another, I think, wonderful program expansion. We were able to get more parents that were willing to pay a tuition to have their student go into that program, so it balanced the fees and the cost of expanding that program as well. So very proud of that. The other program that I did was a mental health summit, which was pulled from a number of schools across the region to look at the mental health needs of students that we were all struggling with. So I brought together a team of counselors, and we looked at really providing and creating a mental health summit. So we looked at a PD schedule and resources, and so we created, and it still is being done, an annual mental health summit with speakers, resources for our counselors to attend, to really focus in on the needs of the kids well before the pandemic even occurred. So those kinds of things were happening as well. For our students on the autism spectrum, we created a Saturday social. I worked with our youth center folks to be able to offer an opportunity for our kids who were, in high school, had very little social interaction, and work with the parents there. They worked with us so that the kids could go out bowling, they could do crafts, they could go out and have pizza, parents could do a little bit of dinner, nothing very long, but that was another kind of program that was successful as well. I worked with, created an early childhood council, worked with our local library to do early literacy initiative, and then also kindergarten readiness initiative as well. So those are the things that I did.
Anything, what are those wheels turning in your brain, like things that you can, there are any, like I said, just off the wall ideas in terms of innovation? What areas of special education do you think need innovation?
I think
what I would ask.
That's a great question. I think a couple of things come to mind quickly. One would be around executive functioning. I think we need to really look at that area in terms of a skill deficit that I don't think that we are addressing really aggressively for our students. I think the sort of the old sort of look at like organizing your notebook is really not the way to address what our students need right now. It really should be under that window of executive functioning, looking at what's available there for under technology, even just using the kids' phones. How do we help them use those types of skills to prepare for the adult world in a safe, secure way, in terms of something that's a ready to use, accessible tool. So that would be one, and then the other would be around being the literacy that would be more, again, around accessible, related to more technology as well. Because that's really where the kids are reading, is around the technology piece of that.
Awesome. I'm going to go a little off script here. I was going to ask you about.
Sorry.
I was going to ask you. Yeah, no. Please take as much time as you want to answer. Your answers are fascinating. I love the innovation that you've sort of fostered throughout your career. I was going to ask you about budgets, but it was something popped into my head just because of the length of time that you spent in Region 13. I was wondering if you could talk to the concept, sort of your approach to conflict resolution, because in 18 years or 20 years in the district, you have to see conflict resolution. Conflict, but not only with families, but also with staff and administrators. And so rather than boring you with talking about how you set a budget and where your priorities are, I would ask you to sort of talk to each one of those and talk about how you approach conflict resolution with staff, how you approach conflict resolution with families, and what your strategy is to go about to sort of foster a dynamic where all of those parties come together so that we don't see that type of that type of challenge.
Yeah, I remember when I arrived in Billerica, I was told that the previous relationship with the high school principal was a toxic one, probably the most toxic that there had ever been. And I think conflict comes really, in my mind, from fear, lack of understanding, or a lack, usually from fear, lack of understanding, or lack of unwillingness to change, right? And so when I come to the realization that there's some conflict that exists, I usually try to figure out sort of which of those columns does this fall into, and why is it? Is it based off of fear, a lack of understanding, a lack of willingness to change because someone's more comfortable with this is the way we've always done it and I don't want to change it, or you're coming in to change something that you don't have any business changing, like i.e. you're the special ed director and I'm the principal and you can't change my building. I don't want to change your building, but I'm here to make sure that we're following special ed regulations and laws, so let's figure out how we can get that done without me thinking I'm going to change your building, right? There's things that have to be done and we have to tweak things, but I don't want to change your building. I don't want to be the principal. So first it's about, let me first do my best to understand what's happening here. So I think my personality, as you guys can tell, is one that's pretty open and pleasant, but I'm quietly firm, and I don't waver from my responsibility as the director of what I'm required to do under the regulations, but I'm a very good listener, I'm a very strong problem solver, and I'm really good at kind of tackling what the problem is, and I can tease through that, and I do it in a way that I feel is really respectful to both sides, because I can listen to both sides, I can keep that respect about each person's point of view and what they want to, what is valuable to them, without making them give that up in a way that feels like they lose, if you will. So I'm good at finding common ground, and what I do is like my earlier example, I don't personalize it, I make it objective, right? So I make it either about the law, or the regulations, or about, I try to non-personalize it, or I make it about, it's me that I have to get this done, right? Instead of about you or you, it's, by making it non-personal, then it allows, ideally, the two people to begin to work with me on how do we get them to move more towards the middle to resolution. And then sometimes I do have to say, okay, we got this far, but we got to get here. Like, this is a non-negotiable, right? Because sometimes I have to come in to say, nicely, politely, firmly, it's a non-negotiable, right? I understand that you guys hate it. I understand this, we don't like it. Like, what are the things that you hate about it, that you think are going to blow up, that your staff's not going to like? I'll help you through it. I'll be the bad guy, you be the good guy. I don't mind doing that. Like, whatever I need to do is what I typically sort of work through. And I have a lot of experience in doing that. And I don't mind, being the fall guy. I don't mind, I can have a hard exterior when I need to, but I'm also very empathetic and, supportive.
Great.
Does that
Thank
answer
you.
that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Would you mind asking the budget question?
Oh,
So we
sorry.
have it
All right.
for
Yeah, sorry. So, the other question I was going to ask, it revolves around budgeting. And so, being in a regional school district, obviously, you have a ton of experience with budgeting. And so,
Yes.
the question that I would ask you would be, how do you go about creating a budget? How do you, where do you lay your priorities, and how do you see your role in sort of the overall development of the budget, especially in a regional school district?
Yeah, budgets are the ones that make me, I have my budget book, my budget numbers. I know my numbers very well, being the special ed director, because I know the importance of that. And, special ed can be costly. You have to always know your numbers. And so I'm always aware of my 5-year trends in the district. I always want to know, always 5-year trends, 3-year trends. And I know my monthly trends. I'm very good friends with the business finance manager. And I look at those probably weekly, if not always monthly, but so I look at trends, I look at where the money is, where the money isn't being used, why isn't it being used, if we budgeted it here, why is it not being used, if it's being used more quickly than I would have anticipated it, why is that, if things are ordered, like for example in supplies, is that a good use of that resource? Have I seen it be ordered before? Are we getting a good value for what we've ordered? For example, are we ordering more reading materials? Why is that? Is that something that we really need, or is that something that's supplemental, or is that something that's crucial to truly what the reading program is that we should be using? I'm very much about evidence-based programs and not sort of piecemealing things, right? We often tend to do we can do a lot of piecemealing, I should say, in some of our programming and our instruction. We shouldn't be doing that. So I would be looking at the value and the use of our materials that we use. I look at the programming materials that we use. I look at where our placements are. I look at how we're programming for students. Can we bring students that are outplaced back? We should always annually have to look at that. We should be looking at that. That always must be the conversation, because that's what the regulations say. And so those are always part of my conversations. I start the budgets early. When I have conversations with my staff, I talk with them about that. I have them prioritize their budget requests, and I talk through that with what those are. I go back and look at what they spent or didn't spend, but I am very involved in my budget throughout the school year and over the years to make sure that I can talk with the superintendent and with the business manager about my budget at any given time.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Cheryl? Microphone?
One last question. It's an easy one.
Oh, okay.
So what do you do for fun? Who are you outside of school and work?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So I spend a lot of time with my husband, and we do, some, fun sort of couple stuff. We like to go. He has a 65 Mustang. I think this is a 65 Mustang. So we like to go for rides. So that's fun. We like to go for, for rides and, just kind of get out when the night weather is nice. We like to go to the Cape and go out on the beach. The exciting part is we now have 3 grandchildren, and so that has become a very, very, very busy part of our lives. A remarkable, wonderful part of our lives. We have a grandchild, we don't know boy or girl, is coming very soon, so that will make it that much more busy. But it's really just about family and just spending time together and just kind of relaxing and enjoying those sort of kind of quiet family times, or busy times, I should say, with the grandchildren. So, you're welcome.
If your husband's watching this,
He's here.
his first comment, he is.
Is
His
this the right year?
His
Is this
first
the right
comment's
year?
going to be, you didn't know what year the Mustang was?
Am I right? It's a 65.
What year was it?
65.
65.
65.
I was
Convert-
Good
Is
job.
it convertible?
It's a coupe.
Cool.
Nice.
Is there any additional information that you would like to share with us that you feel did not come through in the questions that we asked you this evening?
I think they were great questions. I think I would just want to end that I am deeply, deeply passionate. and sort of gather that about the field of special education. And I want to do nothing more, as you can tell, for my profession, and have not wanted to do anything for my profession. My daughter, I'm very proud to say, is also in the field of special education, even though she insisted she would never do it. So, you know, I've been proud to mentor others. I've been very proud of my daughter, and just the impact that I've been able, I feel, to have on students and their families is something I want to continue. I feel like I have many more years to continue to do that, to grow the field, to improve the work that we do with students. Again, when I looked, you know, at where would I want to go next, I really feel like Wilbraham is the district that really does align with where I feel my core values are, where I see myself being able to contribute my knowledge, my expertise, my willingness to bring those skills and work with a team and to work with staff and parents and families and students. So, you know, we'd love to be part of a district like this. So that's what I would like to kind of end with.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions for us?
I guess I just have one or two. What would be, for you, what would be the priority that you would see sort of as a first priority for someone coming into the position from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say just someone to be visible, to work with uniting your team and communicating with parents, really having that. We have really strong families and parents in this community, and just getting on board with them, letting them learn who you are, understand who you are, and learning who they are as well would be critical.
Okay, great. And then one last question. What are you guys most proud of in terms of the district or the department? You know, obviously you guys are here for a purpose, and so what are you most proud of?
I'll just say I am so crazy, super over the hill proud of our students. Our students they amaze me every day. My son, his friends, the other people, the students in this building, just how they just go above and beyond and just amaze me every day.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you. Well, thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We will be deliberating this evening.
Okay.
So if you would just make sure that Erin has your cell phone number, the best number to contact you, and we will be reaching out this evening.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Biological. Biological. You know what's going to happen in the car? It's a 65. My cousin, when he graduated college, he was the first person in his family to graduate college, and his dad had an agreement with him that if he graduated with honors college, that he would get a 1968 Mustang for them to fix up. And he got him a perfectly pristine, already fixed up 5.
Feel bad, I asked him if it was a convertible, he said it was a coupe.
Well, of course, no, come on.
That was my first.
I mean,
I had
that kind of grind that you have.
and then I got a 66 convertible. I had it already, yeah.
It's just an iconic car.
Yeah.
All the coupe and the, he hasn't met you, has he?
And so I'll take whatever. I was like, no.
Dream of growing up.
So like the Lexus that I had right now, it's a 1970 Challenger. And it's purple, and his name is Jimmy, after Jimi Hendrix.
You got the space for it?
Space is the second consideration.
Right.
Time is the first
A
consideration.
buddy of mine
brothers actually, they went to high school. College together. He got, and it's funny, a Dodge Charger, took out the engine, changed the engine, put all this like power in it. They did those races where they would race across a desert and stuff like that, where you have one guy who's the navigator, just tells him where to go, and the other guy's driving. And, Joe's.
So that's the
Not
closest
as
I'll
cool
get.
as Jimmy though,
No,
but not as cool as Jimmy.
that's the closest I'll get to my
You know, I
sister.
mean, it's like there's still.
I think it's a challenge.
How much it is?
Cheese whiz?
Cheese whiz. There's something that's not sure contains any cheese.
What Dante's in, what, eighth grade?
I'm gonna ask you.
Seventh grade.
For,
He's in sixth.
that's okay. It's a big kid. Yeah, we never really dived this deep into like. Yeah, I wanna say though, the last time we did like. I think we had food last time, yeah.
Wasn't for this position.
Set up like food in the
Right? Not much left, Cheryl. So,
We did.
well, those are sunflower seeds.
Just like sugar. Your sunflower seeds? Yeah. Alright.
First round. Did you press that? You guys did a good job. Three of these people. That's it.
Oh, Jimmy's gorgeous. Oh, yeah.
It's supposed to rain tomorrow. Anyone know the weather tomorrow? Alexa, what's the weather?
Siri.
Appreciate your car. Sure you want.
Hang on, I'll check.
I don't know why. I love that. For some reason, I just love it.
My husband can't really fit in it, so my husband's for mine.
Whatever, I'm big guy,
He's like, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday.
I don't know.
Cloudy skies early, partly cloudy later in the day, high 52. Winds northwest 15 to 25 miles per hour. Higher wind gusts possible. Bring it inside.
Better give everyone a minute, so we're not
Would you mind if I finish this go to the bathroom real quick?
Why don't you just take your time going back? That's one thing you don't want to do real quick. Finish.
Close enough.
You got another chicken there.
Don't forget to pop the door open.
The bodyguard's there. Fill it up. Call the bodyguard. Just come in.
So John, you do anything for April vacation?
You notice he's at a.
Yeah, that's my spring cleanup week.
Very rarely.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'll be spreading a lot of mulch. I'll be getting the lawn ready.
Perfect, perfect. So that's your landscaping.
Yes, it is.
Does it take you a whole week?
Yeah, it does, because there's a lot, and it gets so beat up in the winter. You know,
How much
the
mulch? do you
trees
spread?
and stuff.
Spreading the mulch is a big part of it.
Yeah, that's about a day. You know, I'll do between 6 and 8 yards.
Okay.
So,
So I have a toy for you. I would highly recommend you want to spread mulch.
So this right here.
Just going with
It's everywhere. This is, don't eat.
So this We both had baseball practice last night.
In the rain?
Yeah. No, not here. They didn't do it here. They did.
So
Here the day
It's a big
before,
boy.
and they were
It
somewhere
is
else, not very far away.
phenomenal.
They did
You
it
have
in the
one?
rain.
Oh.
They were just
Bought it.
didn't even know it was raining.
2014, so about 10 years ago.
Well, to get warm.
That machine will spread 10 yards of mulch in 40
Their
minutes.
number one job is to pass on.
It's got a third of a yard bucket,
Yeah.
third of a yard bucket, so you just pick it up. Usually I tell people just do it early in the season because, you know, the tires, depending on how you drive,
Right.
tires will kind of chip the grass a little bit.
Right.
But it literally is a backhoe on the backside, so if I want to pick up like a tree stump, you know, it's like, so let me give you a quick example, like, you have perennials. So,
Run some water or
ornamental grasses, right, so when you go to split those clumps, you know how hard that is to split those clumps. With the backhoe, you can literally pop that entire clump out of the ground, all right? You can hit it with an axe,
Really good.
or a
Just take
maul,
pictures.
split it in,
I was in a dorm, and the
and
bathroom
then
didn't
you
really
can
hold.
just
So like to
replant
get
part of it
to
back in,
like
and
the
then
next
take
part
your
of the hallway.
you know what? So what would take you an hour with a shovel,
There's like a door on both sides.
5 minutes with a machine. I've moved rocks as big as this table with that machine.
Pretty serious.
And whenever they would open the doors.
And the wintertime I had a snow blower that was on 59 inches wide, so I could do my
It
driving.
was
It's really nice.
I mean, there's doors.
So I will say that because I love landscaping. Landscaping is like,
Where you want to go.
my wife knows, I'm out on the lawn,
And boys or girls.
whatever I'm doing,
Then I hear.
that's like, that's like my tea time.
No, it is. Get out of
You
here.
know, she's like, how come you don't listen to music? How come you don't, because I think, you know, I'm always like just running things through my head, but I don't listen to music, I just look at the yard. So I got you, right there with you.
Yeah.
So my big project here is kids. When we were younger, our neighbors gave us a trampoline trip. And so the trampoline basically just came me down to another field. So this winter, I looked at it and it was like, the thing's all rusted out. I told my wife, I said, we can't keep this. It's why everything's there. She was like, yeah. So we got rid of this. Well, you would think that we just sold a vacation home because the kids were like, where's the trampoline? Well, like, it was all rusted out. Like, you don't need a trampoline. It was like, all right, fine. So we went out and bought a new trampoline, and I'm like, great guy. I said, you know, I have to drag this thing across the lawn. Because I have to mow, right? And then I have to drag it over. So I literally just, on the front of my house, have this huge planted bed. It's probably 40 yards long. So I just cut out an area on the back of it, just put up some landscape, you know, some hedges and ledging, and then I put the trampoline right in the middle there, just lead block down, throw a bunch of stuff on top of it, and then, at some point in the future, when I get a new trampoline, I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just,
I have 2 kids.
that's a good time to get it done, hopefully the weather will be nice. It's the worst thing is when you get a neighbor vacation, and you do something like that.
She wants the.
Raw.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's that great plan where like 4 kids share the bathroom, that's it. No one else has access to it.
Is everyone ready?
Yep.
Okay, so we will begin our deliberations on the 3 candidates that we just interviewed.
I'd like to start this process, if I may, of asking our superintendent, who has seen everybody, who he likes, and if he has any preference.
So I'm seeing some looks from other members. Let me, I mean, the issue with asking that question right off the bat is that you may choose someone else, and then if it's that person, they start the relationship wondering if it's okay with me. So, you know, that may be something that I want to weigh in on at a later point.
Sure, that's fair, okay.
It's very fair. No, I think I would start off by saying to those who served on the selection committee, you guys did a heck of a job. Yeah. I mean, you brought 3 very strong candidates forward. So they all have strengths that are very distinct. I mean, you can definitely see where the differences in the 3 candidates lie. And so I think as we look at this deliberation tonight, I think it's really going to come down to what we feel, what strengths we feel would most benefit this district, especially at this juncture. So I would say that that's it's a good job with that. I don't know if anybody has some initial preliminary thoughts, and then we can start throwing some names around.
Let me just ask, this is just something interesting. Does everybody have a leader in your head of the one candidate that's kind of leading out front for you? Or is anyone undecided at this point?
No, I have one.
Yeah, do you have one, yeah?
I have one.
Yeah, what about you? Do we want to start maybe by?
Straw poll?
Yeah, do a straw poll? I mean, Michelle was asking.
No, whatever everyone is interested in doing. Happy to do. There's no set rules, it's just whatever we decide collectively. Sure.
All right, who likes Joshua? Okay. Who likes Matthew? And who likes Andy?
I guess I'd like to clarify with
I'm kidding.
the other 2.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I really like them.
I
wasn't here. I like them all. I would thank everybody for their time.
to echo what Bill said, I mean, we're let's be frank, we're blessed with 3 really good candidates. I guess one of Matt's strengths and weaknesses, I think, is that he has a bit of an unconventional career path. So, he may bring some insights to the position that others might not, but he may also have struggles that others may not, because, he hasn't kind of been, because he did the government job and he came back, so he's gonna, and his recommendations talk about him having a really great understanding of the laws and stuff, which I can see he would get from the government positions. My impression from Amy, I was kind of so initially, but I really warmed up to her, and she really started to she really convinced me about how passionate she was about special education. And I think that she would do wonderful as well. But yeah, I mean, for me, Josh was the front runner. He spoke most to kind of my thoughts about how leaders should support people. Although they all made some comments to those effects during their interviews. And I mean, a lot of them made similar comments in the interviews as well. So, but I don't know, that's kind of some of my summary comments.
One of the things I liked about Josh was he was the only one who brought up, albeit at the end, but we're talking special ed, we're talking.
I like Josh's innovation. I loved his talk about the innovative programs, certainly the IEP manual that was put together, the website. That was very striking to me. I think where Josh lacked a little bit of polish was in presentation. His answers were good. I thought the content of his answers were good. Communication style, a little tentative. Matt he very much brings the business side of it. I was drawn to Matt very much because he is very personally engaging. He's a very likable individual, and, has a lot of, certainly has, as Mike was saying, has an unconventional path into the field of special education. The reason why I chose Amy is because one of the things that I have not seen in a long time is somebody with a track record in one district for such a long period of time, which says to me that you got to be pretty good at what you're doing, because this is not a position that you could be in for 18 years in one district and not be good. I mean, these are positions where people do change an awful lot, where there is burnout, where there is a lot of conflict between not only parents but also between staff members. Somebody who's able to navigate that in a district for 18 years, that carries a ton of weight with me. So while, and I have nothing against Matt, I have nothing against Josh. I think they're very, very strong candidates. I think any district would be lucky to have them. But I just simply cannot dismiss that much experience. It's overwhelmingly impressive to me.
So I look at this process like the Olympic swimming events, with the gold, silver, and the bronze. There might be 1/100th of a second between them, or 1,000th of a second between them. They are all that good, just micro here and there. That being said, I looked at it in more of a leadership, if I'm saying it correctly, more of like a leadership view. Like, for example, Matt was talking about my central office, and a lot of what he was saying was I, right? And that's fine, that shows that, he has that control. Amy was more of us, like, I represent the district, and I'm going to listen to people, I'm going to explain our position, so we can have them come over to our, our position. And Josh had that more of a we, more of a team. He talked about the team, he talked about us, we talked about, talk to the families, get to know what's going on at home, and then talk to, to everyone, make sure everyone is saying what they want to say, be communicative, come together, really work it out together. I just thought was what pushed me over the top as just being that is the guy, that is what we need. I do have to say that the innovation, Josh has really amazing innovation. I love Amy's innovation with, hey, what are you doing with that building over there? And turning it into something. So, yeah, like I said, they're all really, really close, but Josh, for me, is right there. Amy would be second, and then Matt would be third. And I'm telling you, within a 100th of a second each one.
So for me, Josh would be my first choice. Things that stood out to me that he spoke to were the whole student. He's very student-centric, about relationship building. He spoke about evidence and data, using that to support perspectives, and collaboration, actively engaging with families, again, and being able to provide those benchmarks and the data for the families to help support, what's best for the students, and just the honesty and transparency, the willingness to admit to mistakes, and also, so I was on the hiring committee, and just, the other questions that were asked, the things that he spoke to about, his thoughts on professional development, the way that he interacts and collaborates and builds teams with staff just sounded really amazing. I found him to be very genuine. I found him to be very authentically true to who he was, but also I can see how he can not only foster relationships and build them, but also mend relationships and build trust because of the way that he seems to just be as a human being. I feel that people would love working for him, respect working for him. He's knowledgeable, and he really is willing to look to all of those other people on his team for insight, support, and do its best for the students. So for me, he's the front runner. And also just his willingness to do things to not only support, he's working for the district, but supporting the parents and the student and the staff.
And so he spoke to all of those things. Anyone else? Okay, so why don't we do a vote? Okay, so we'll
I'll
vote.
make a motion or something like that, or I make a motion to send out an invitation to begin negotiations with Joshua Dickinson for the role of Director of Student Services for the HWRSD.
I would probably do it, because you would want to, oh, sorry.
I'd probably do it because it's a vote for 3 individual candidates. I probably would register the vote of each individual member. I think that would be more appropriate rather than just saying a name.
I think
if
we're
we don't
gonna,
mind.
yeah, no, I think we're gonna do, that's what my plan was, to do for each person,
Yeah.
to see where the tallies lie,
Mhm.
and then.
Okay, so not a motion at this time.
No, so we'll just do the
I
motions
withdraw
for
the
the,
motion because it has not been seconded. Was it
it
seconded?
was not seconded. Okay, so we'll just do,
You did second
you
it?
do, I'm sorry, okay.
But you
I
could
make a motion
table
to
it.
table the motion.
Second.
There you go.
Okay. So we'll begin with, so please just vote for one, I will follow that as well. So, all those in favor and moving forward with Josh Dickinson?
What do we say, aye?
Oh,
Just raise
yeah,
your
so
hand.
everyone please raise their hand. Okay.
Don't we have to do it verbally? in case
I think we're just doing a straw poll right now.
Oh,
Yeah, yep, just,
Okay.
did you, were you able to see that, Mary? Okay. Okay. So all those in favor of Matthew Holloway? All those in favor of Amy Emery?
Can we take her to,
It's not in our budget. I said it's not in our budget. Can we get?
Yeah, I know, well, you can't. That's one of the bad parts about this job is you gotta pick one.
Okay. Okay.
So
I
just go around
the
the
motion back from the table.
I would just go around and just say who you vote for. And just like we did with the superintendent, right? We vote for it and that's it. So everybody gets a vote registered and then you just tally the votes.
Leave it on the table.
Wait, do we want to let John chime in on the discussion before we finalize it?
Sure.
Because he asked to be tabled.
Sure. I'll weigh in and say that Josh would be my front runner as well. Many people who spoke tonight spoke to the strategic plan, but one other document that I think about a lot is my entry plan. And in the entry findings, one of the things that came out loud and clear were places within the district where there were fractured relationships and folks having difficulty working together as a team. I think I heard Josh speak to that more than any of the other 2 candidates, and that would be the reason why. I'll also second what has been said about the quality of all of the candidates, and would just take a moment to thank the screening committee for the work they did. We started, just so you know, with 13 candidates, and we followed a process that I think was effective to get us down to this group of 3 who were also closely clumped, as you mentioned. So we had representation from all the different buildings, and we had a variety of different roles. Just to publicly thank the screening committee. Michelle Boudreau, of course, was on for the school committee for administrative staff. We had Steve Hale, Allison Pettit, and Jen Puhalski. From the Parent Advisory Council, we had Karen Romano. For staff, we had Lynn Mayette, who was a teacher, special ed teacher at Stony Hill. Kayla Zuko, who's a team leader at Stony Hill and Sewell Road. Amanda Whittier, who's a speech pathologist from Green Meadows. And Patty Granfield, who's a paraprofessional for WMS. And I also want to say that, if you look at the timeline, you'll see that we did training and we did this whole thing about trying to guard against bias. And because of that, that meant that all 13 packets, which were just like these ones you had, were masked for the first round, which meant that Aaron spent days tediously taking out every pronoun, every name, every reference, so that we could just look at candidates on the basis of their qualifications without any sort of factors that might trigger bias. So thanks for that, Aaron.
Thank you to that team, and special thanks to Aaron as well.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
Okay, so we'll do roll call alphabetically with, and you can register your vote. Okay,
Amy.
Bill. Cheryl.
Josh.
Josh. Thank you. Sean.
Joshua.
Lisa. Josh. Mike.
Josh?
And myself, Josh.
So one thing I would ask is, I think running into a vote like this, I respect the other members of the committee, I respect John. I want to get my vote on record, but if I could ask for a second vote so that we could register a unanimous vote for Joshua coming in, because I certainly don't want him to feel like there was any, any factor of the district against him. I want him to come in with both feet running and feel like he has the unanimous support of the district. So if we do that.
Do you want to just bring the motion back to the table? Okay, bringing the motion back to the table, then we're going to instruct Superintendent Provost to enter into negotiation with Joshua Dixon for the role of Director of Student Services for the HWRSD.
It was already seconded.
It's already seconded, yeah.
Okay, so we will do an all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay, so
Unanimous.
motion carries 6-0. So thank you very much. And with that, we do have the need for executive session.
I make a motion to go to the, oh wait, you got to read it.
Yep. To conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel and/or to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel, chosen candidate for the position of the Director of Student Services.
Second.
Okay.
So move second, yep.
And we will be adjourning from executive session. So roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
Cheryl? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Lisa? Aye. Mike?
Yep.
Myself, aye. And we are moving to executive session at 9:02. Thank you very much.